All right. Hippy Dippy tonight. This should be awesome. I'm going to go into the chat here, so hopefully it goes well. So here we go, going into the fray.
Yet I watched it last night and today. I think everybody's seen it though, so that'll be good. So
it will be. We won't be talking about stuff that we won't be talking about hypotheticals. So it should be nice.
It'll be good because it's always kind of cringy.
This should be
on
definitely
panel
a
if,
blast.
Like, half the panelists aren't familiar with the subject matter or whatnot.
Well, let me tell you what I've heard.
I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet thread that's very relevant here.
Oh no.
Bonus points if someone mentions cuties.
Ooh, bonus points. Okay. That didn't count. It has to be during the panel, right? And it has to be organic.
Yeah.
Like you can't just put it in there. And
you can't just say it. Yeah. That goes for the next tier list, by the way. I'll move you up a tier if you mention it.
Is it worth it?
It might be.
To bring up cuties? I don't know. I think that's the risk reward there just doesn't match up.
What do you guys think the chances are we'll see CTV make a surprise appearance today?
Well, I was gonna ask Danabo, who is the right leaning and left leaning people on this panel? Am I right leaning today?
Yep.
Nice.
We've got Hunter on the right.
For real?
No. We got
CTV can't show up every time because then you want to make it to like he could show up, he might not show up, but we're always looking for him. We're always checking the rafters to see if he comes in. If he shows up every time, well then we expect it, and that ruins it.
That's right. That's right. No, I'm
the threat is enough.
I'm usually considered right wing because of my economic stances for the most part. So I guess I'm to the right, but I'm socially liberal, so which is the rarest combination apparently of that. So most people are like either socially conservative and economically
what's up, Dylan?
Liberal or
welcome.
You know,
what's up, Liquid Sunshine? Welcome everybody.
It's almost a joke to say like I'm a social conservative fiscal liberal. That's almost a joke. So it's usually the other way around.
Well, I mean liberal in like the Reaganite sense of it, you know, like liberal economics, that type of thing. But
liberal, okay.
Yeah, but I guess in American politics, liberal generally means left of center with economics. But yeah, but usually most people are like right wing on economics, right wing on social issues, or left wing on both. Or the more common one is right wing socially, left wing economically, which, you know, that's like the Nazbol gang.
That's the Nazbol gang.
Nazbol gang. A lot of those people on Twitter these days. So.
Yeah, Dylan, your favorite person, Kevin the Cringe. How's my sound coming in? Everybody, is my sound coming in good? Hopefully it's coming in well.
I want to grab me a water.
That's a good idea. That's definitely a good idea. Also, another good idea is if you got like a jug or like a Brita jug, make sure it's full for the panel so you don't have to spend time filling the water. If you got a break, you can just have it ready to refill.
There's Lou.
Very good advice. Oh, Bunkoyo, what's up? Ayo. Ayo, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, my friends, to the show that never ends. Except it does end, because I go to bed. Come inside, come inside. I don't know the rest of that song, but I believe it's a Styx song. Hope everybody's doing well this evening. I know I am. About to do even better.
This is too quiet.
Oh yeah, I think everybody's like posting that they're live. At least that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Get people to show up.
Got to get all your self promos into all the Discords and all the social medias and all that fun stuff.
I'm checking out the slideshow that is my camera right now.
Oh yeah, no, you got a pretty good camera, but I guess it's probably a bandwidth issue.
It just doesn't work half the time. Oh, it's fixed now. We'll see. It'll freeze at some point.
Hopefully everybody had a nice week. Hopefully you're all going to enjoy the weekends. A nice little kickstart to the weekend. So looking forward to this conversation.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
I was hyped when Danabo invited me. I'm like, because he sent me the topics list too. I was like, ooh, that's gonna be fun. You know, like there was a lot of heated back and forth over the Superman thing, for example. So on Twitter, so
you could say
everything
that
on
Superman
Twitter is
discourse
heated,
goes
man.
both
Come on.
ways.
Right?
No, that's true. That's true. It's just we got into a point with Twitter where
Twitter's
I
not a
guess
real
that's
place.
right.
You said you watched the special. Come on now. The gospel according to Chappelle.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Dave.
Not David Chappelle. He's an off-brand one. All right.
You know the true way to enjoy.
Earlier.
You know the true way to enjoy a stand-up special, like you take notes during the stand-up special, like it's homework. That's how you truly enjoy stand-up comedy.
Oh, that's like what I do when I'm like doing film reviews and stuff on Letterboxd. I write notes. I do them on my phone though. Yeah, that's old school. That's based actually.
Yeah. Now, some people say like to best enjoy stand-up, it needs to be live. You got to have a few drinks in you. There needs to be a lot of people around. No, you're by yourself, pen and paper, just water next to you, and you notate the stand-up set. That's how you truly.
I'm expecting time codes from you tonight. Okay.
I did not do the times.
If you're gonna direct quote, I need time codes.
Quick mic check for Lumi, please.
Testing.
Perfect.
Oh, Lucid is base. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
What's up,
Thank you very
fam?
much. Right, that's my job done. Have
Fucking
a great
amazing.
one, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, see you soon. Take care.
Yeah,
thanks,
Danabo.
Danabo.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, looks like we're about to get this show on the road. I'm
And
excited.
Nacho's just a still frame.
I even manicured my beard a little bit for this.
All right.
Can you all hear me?
All right,
hello?
I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. I'd like to welcome you all to the HippyDippy Roundtable. You're all very special snowflakes in my heart, and I'm happy to have you all here today. So we have a bunch of interesting topics to talk about today. Really, all the topics are going to be very interesting. We don't have any sleepers today. And you've all been on my show before, except Lumi. Have you been on the show ever before?
I think it might be my first time.
It might be their first time. Well, so since it is your first time, you will be the first to introduce yourself after I say the rules. So first off, nothing against terms of service. I would like to keep my job. I like to eat food, and I would like to continue to eat food.
Thank you guys all for hanging out, by the way. I appreciate
no
it.
attacking people's immutable characteristics.
Hopefully you guys can get something out of this conversation. We can keep it entertaining, and I'm going to try to bicker with the chat a little bit if I can. So if you guys want to keep questions coming in, comments,
that's not my job.
Give me tips on what to say.
But it is a recommendation.
That would be awesome.
That you
I always need some helps from the
always be nice
from the bench.
It's
always awesome.
Spice, even though it isn't a rule, but not attacking people's immutable characteristics is a line I draw in the sand, even if it isn't against TOS. The next rule is when I am talking, nobody else is talking. If I am low on your end, I am sorry. You have to turn me up on Discord. Right when you hear my voice, you are to stop talking, no matter the circumstances. I am not talking to give my opinion. I am just talking to moderate. On each topic, you will have a short intro and outro segment where nobody can interrupt you and nobody can talk over you during that time. Other than that, if you find it difficult to speak, now please listen to this part. This is the important part. If you find it difficult to speak because you're not used to panel environments or they're difficult for you to navigate, raise your hand once you have found that it is difficult for you to find your way into this particular conversation. I'll write your name down and I'll make sure that eventually we get over to you and we get to hear what you have to say. But please use it as a last resort, not a first resort, because it is quite difficult to manage all these names, moderate at the same time, moderate chat, etc. Is there anything that anyone is confused about or any questions? No? Wonderful. So we're going to go into introductions, and we're going to
I feel
start
very
with the
privileged to
lovely
have this
Lumiru.
amazing Twitch audience. You guys are the best
And they are
community
muted.
ever.
They are still muted. Professional streamer. Been doing this for years. Longer than I have, even. Been doing this for so long.
Listen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm Lumiru, professional streamer. I use they, them pronouns, regularly talk about gender, men's liberation, a wide variety of issues, but mostly gender and intersectional feminism. Really excited to have the
Oh, thank you
topics
for
this
linking the
evening.
Discord,
Thank you all for
Liquid
having me,
Sunshine.
and thank
Very
you so
nice.
much, Dylan, for
I was
having
just
me
thinking
on.
about
I
that
appreciate it.
myself.
Happy to have you on, Lumi.
I love Lumi.
Next, we're going to move it over
She's so
to
comfy.
the now bearded Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Great to be here again. I'm Kevin Castley. I run the channel Superpower Broadcasting. I stream every day on Twitch. I cover politics, but I also started doing gaming streams and looking to branch out more. And
oh, what's up,
basically,
Quinko? Thank you for the follow.
Liberal hawk,
You're amazing.
Focused mostly on foreign policy and security issues. I'm a anti-theist. I consider myself
anti-theist. I love it.
Mostly socially left, economically center to center right. I'm a feminist. I talk about basically the promotion of the democratic order, the liberal order around the world, and emerging and established threats against that order. And so I also do a show, Ghoul Gang Rising, every Saturday night with my co-host Spooky Nukies, and we dunk on the worst foreign policy takes of the week in our view, and usually features some pretty goofy people on the far left and the far right. So yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
Happy to have you here. Next, we're going to throw it over to the Turk.
Hey, Dylan, thanks for having me on. Just a friendly reminder, since this is a short notice booking for me, time and a half, so I expect bills payable shipped to me. But I'm glad you're embracing the camo hat. I'm not a fan of that particular pattern.
I don't blame you. We literally just met the other day, I think. So I think this is my first stream
here on Twitch and over at YouTube.
Since it's my first stream, I think since we
mainly do science and tech stuff, but
since we've become acquainted. So I'll forgive you for that one, Binkoy. Still can't. I still don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry.
A lot of good topics.
It's gonna get worse as I drink more on the stream, so it's gonna get more and more awful.
Happy to have you on. Next, we're gonna throw it over to Jangles.
Hi everyone, my name's Justin. I go by have a YouTube channel called Jangles Science Lab where I talk a lot about social issues, science, and I have 3 videos up there on comedy and stand-up comedy and the humor theory behind it because I want to destroy jokes. I don't want anyone.
Kevin hates the working class,
I hate humor. I hate laughter, and I'm looking to ruin jokes, comedy, and really just culture during this panel. So I'm looking forward to it.
Happy to have you on, Jangles. This is going to be Hunter.
Yeah, my name is Hunter Avalone. I am a former conservative turned social democrat. Looking forward to the discussion. Thanks again for having me on, Dylan.
Happy to have you on. Now we're going to throw it over to American Nacho.
Yeah, hi, I'm American Nacho. I play video games. I stream on Twitch and then sometimes upload videos to YouTube, meaning like every month. Because I'm working. You can find me on all the socials. I think I'm still the only American Nacho. So, center right. I'm kind of a pragmatist at the end of the day, but most of my leanings tend to put me in the right, so.
I still can't pronounce that. I'll have to try it.
Next is going to be Biggs.
Yeah, my name is Biggs. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at Biggs8500. I want to thank Dylan and all the panelists tonight for coming on and allowing me to be on tonight. I'm a center-right libertarian for the most part. I try to err on the side of freedom and just trying to get people to live their lives in the best way they can.
Happy to hear that. Now we're going to throw it over to Dr. Heemdout.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Hindout, fastest growing beard on Twitch. Recently partnered fastest growing beard on Twitch, and yeah, I'm here to have a
Awesome.
good time. And I stream Monday to
Awesome,
Friday,
awesome.
5:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern, and I co-host the Burned Out podcast with Dylan Burns. And I also host my own panels on Sunday nights. Pardon the interruption, which Dylan Burns will be on Sunday. So yeah, look forward to that. I'm looking forward to the discussions tonight. I'm sure we all have strong opinions, and thanks for having me on again. Let's do this.
Can I just say that the promotional material you put out for that was great because what he did is, I won't say which streamer it was, but he had like a very, very, very like big streamer, and then he had them on out, and like everybody could see it. It's like, oh my god, they're coming on. And then he used the logo to cover up the person who's actually coming on, and then put an arrow towards them. So it makes it look like the big streamer's coming on, while the very, very small streamer is covered by the logo with the arrow pointing at them.
Listen, it just happened to be that way, okay?
It just happens. So he just
Wait.
happened to take
Yep.
the 2 red arrows and do this to our boy Nacho here.
Wait a minute. Wait, are you trying
don't
to
know how
say
that
that
happened?
people didn't come to the Freer Festival to see me?
Look. That's why I went.
Dude,
I'm seeing Sprouticus tomorrow, actually.
come on, man.
Going up to Delaware to visit him. But okay. Let's go into the first topic. I just want one more reminder that when I'm talking, nobody else is talking. The first topic is actually not going to be the one that everybody is super excited for. We gotta slide into it. We're gonna start with bisexual Superman. So there's been a lot of stories coming out about Superman. Not actually, it's Superman's son, but he's continuing the Superman legacy for all the lore heads out there. John Kent is bisexual. He is in the next comic going to be dating a man, an open relationship with a man, and a queer relationship. And it has been hotly debated on the internet. Some people are saying this is cute, adorable, adorbs. This is great representation. Other people are saying this is politics getting in the comics and the indoctrination of the youngs into the LGBTQ plus agenda. So my question to you all is: do you think that bisexual Superman is good representation in youth media, or do you think it's just a little too political, or however way you want to frame it? I don't want to control the dialogue. So we're gonna start this in the bottom right hand corner with Turk.
Yeah, so I'm not very well versed in this topic. I'm glad it's not actually Superman that's taking on this new role, and it's a new character itself. I'm kind of curious if it's still going to be Superman or if it's some new name. But, anyways, since it's a brand new IP, I think DC has every right to create new characters with all types of back lore, multiverse, all that good stuff. So if the community likes the character and it sells like hotcakes, more power to DC Comics for jumping on the bandwagon of trying to add additional types of characters that fit all these different checkboxes. So I see no problem with it, and we'll let the market decide.
Okay, we're not going to go in traditional order today. I'm going to throw it around, try to juke people up. Next is going to be Hunter.
Oh man, you are throwing me off now. Let me think. So, when it comes to media representation, especially in these kind of areas, it's very important actually that you have media representation for LGBT people as well, especially considering historically they get very little, if not none. Um, so it's very important to see this LGBT like representation growing, and some people I can recognize might claim it's like virtue signaling or whatever, but at the end of the day, study after study has clearly indicated that media can have a psychological effect on you and it can help normalize certain behaviors. So, in some ways, like if you have like pro equality messaging, there have been studies that indicate that that can lead to a subconscious acceptance of more equality. So that can happen on a good thing. This can be a good thing. This can be used for a bad thing. In this case, I mean, I'm not a fan of Superman. I don't really care about the lore or whatever. But yeah, it's a new character. If they want to make him gay or bisexual, I just don't see the problem with that at all.
Okay, next is going to be Jangles.
So unfortunately, if for as long as a non-straight character in a comic or any other piece of media makes the news and causes controversy, for as long as that happens, it is going to need to happen more. Like it shows that it's still an important thing to have, because it sucks that like my identity, seeing someone who is like me in media, is considered like a political stance. That fucking sucks. I don't want to be a political stance. I want to be a boring. I want to be a boring topic of conversation. I think that's actually the goal, is to get boring. Because a lot of people will say like, oh, what does this add to the character? Why does it have to add something to the character? Why does there need to be a reason for a non-straight or a woman or a person of color? Why does there need to be a reason for them? Because we do have like these dominant group identities, these majority group identities. That's it's like a fish in water. They don't even realize that they have these identities, and introducing something else seems to be political, which is kind of a weird argument for me, because like, politics and superhero comics kind of like, they are in bed together. They're in a long-term loving relationship, politics and superhero comics. So like making it political, yeah, obviously it's political. I don't know if it'll be good. It hasn't come out yet. So I don't know. Kind of want to see. I want there not to be that record scratch when you hear, oh, Superman is gay now. I kind of want that to be, oh, no record scratch moment. Like it's just, oh, that's a part of the character. Now what is he going to do with it? So I don't know.
Okay, next is going to be Biggs.
Yeah, so I don't personally have any problem with DC doing whatever they want with any of their characters. Like I said, I'm very much for freedom to do whatever they want, and especially if that's what the artists want to portray, I'm perfectly fine with it. What I do have a problem with is maybe as like if I was invested into things like DC Comics and stuff like that, I may be a little bit upset because I was looking into some of the sales numbers, and the first issue of this comic came out in July, sold just over 68,000 copies, and the second issue dropped down to 40,000 copies. So we're already seeing like a decline in this comic. I don't know if it's going to be a good comic. It may be a ploy to try to get more people interested as like a publicity stunt. But I don't know, based on what I read of the artists and the writers, this is what they wanted to do. So I'll take them at their word for that. But I do think that this is kind of like a pandering situation. And I think that it would be much better served to make a completely different, unique character and show the genesis of that, rather than piggybacking off an iconic name like Superman. And we've seen this in the past with some other characters in both DC and Marvel, kind of doing like a change, and that's perfectly fine, like I said, because people do change in real life. But my biggest issue as far as it goes with youth media, I'm perfectly fine with these types of themes as long as they come across as natural and not ham-fisted. I think we can all agree that things like sexuality exist in reality, so it's perfectly fine to expose people to that. But what I miss is like the more wholesome takes on things like that. I've been watching a lot of like older shows, like the old Family Matters show and like the Wonder Years from the 80s. And I think that that's what we need to push more for, like, young kids media, having more wholesome, still have the lessons and stuff like that, but doing it in a more wholesome way. I haven't actually read this comic, and I'd like to see when it does come out in November how it actually is done. And if it's done in a tasteful and natural way, I'm perfectly fine with it. But I do think it's just kind of a publicity stunt to piggyback off the name of Superman.
Okay, next is going to be Nacho.
Yeah, actually, I'll pick right up on what he was saying. I think so much of this, unfortunately, I know this is for the part of the question is like, should it be represented in youth media, which that I'm not really sure about. Like, not necessarily because I'm against like the representation, just because it's like to let kids be kids. But unfortunately, that means that like the parents kind of have to step into that role and be there for the kids. And unfortunately, it just happens to be the case that a lot of parents aren't paying attention to these things and would rather like, oh yeah, you should like suppress those feelings or whatever. So I understand that there's that issue there where these maybe DC or whoever's the writers are feel that they're trying to be like the champions of this, and this way at least they can make it through their childhood feeling the way they feel. I get it, but unfortunately, it does feel like a lot of pandering in the bigger picture.
Hey man,
like
I want to
like
make
the
it
Mermaid,
as
where they're like
clear as
they'll
possible.
just take like
my
a
take
character with like a clearly white like story.
Everyone's
or
shaking in their boots.
Like
yeah, right?
The Frog Prince is like a story about like black struggle. Like they'll take these stories that are already built in a certain way, and then they just insert thing here. So it's actually really lazy and kind of half-assed. And honestly, the LGBTQ community should reject a lot of this shit, like, because they should realize
As
that
a
they're
way
all
for
just being
Superman
bought
to
and sold. Like,
piggyback up views of controversy
they're not writing a brand new story.
If you look
for
at the
you.
actual
and in the case
Superman
of the
comics,
Superman, it
they're actually
sounds like
doing fine.
they actually
It's
are
just this
writing a
new
new one.
comic
So this
isn't
one, I
doing
guess,
well.
is better than I've seen a lot of it in the past. But it just seems like there's been so much that's like just copy pasta, like, and replace this one thing with like black person, with LGBTQ person, with Hispanic person, with whatever, and or with woman, and then it's like, oh, this is going to be better now. And it's like, no, you just took a story that was already about these characters or about this struggle, and then you just inserted this. It's really like, to me, it just seems kind of like lazy and half-ass, and it seems like if that's the case with a DC comic, then good for them for writing like a brand new like universe and story. But yeah, I don't know.
I do appreciate that take, Jay Freak.
Okay, next is going to be Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I think it's worth noting here that if Superman with this comic was noted to be heterosexual, there'd be no discussion about it. We'd just be like, oh, okay, cool. But bisexual. Oh, that's spooky. That's spooky. You can't have that. And so
yeah, it's spooky.
A lot of more social conservative discourse around it is centered on this idea that, oh, it's not wholesome. Well, what is that to say? Is that to basically cast everybody who's bisexual as somehow, I guess, what, deviant or problematic? It just seems that
I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's problematic, other than
with
just it not being like something that people want to see.
Characters as they have different identities or whatever.
We're talking about like a fraction of people that
allocated to them,
like that
by their,
follow comics, which I would argue
the,
isn't even like geared
overseers of
towards
that
younger people now,
intellectual property.
anyways.
And
Most comic
people
book buyers
lose
are
their
probably
minds over it,
like
at least
older.
people that tend to be more
I would
sort
think,
of
anyways.
authoritarian, conservative.
Maybe
about
I'm just
it.
off base with that.
It's one thing. It's one thing to be of more of a libertarian kind of mind around it, where you might not personally necessarily like it, but you're not necessarily going to basically express that opinion or to try to basically be a negative sort of voice on everything. But when you got a lot of the more socially conservative people come out and talk about how, oh, well, this is kind of ruining their childhood or the nostalgia or any of this sort of stuff, it's like, well, hold on a second. Let's say that Superman was declared to be bisexual, say 50 years ago or whatever.
I will agree with you, Dylan. This guy is a long fucking winded, man.
Oh, you find out
this
that
guy could
somebody's
talk a fucking
bisexual now, and it's this huge.
Did you guys watch the show What We Do in Shadows? Any guys know that show?
On the whole, to be very cringy.
He reminds me of the energy vampire in that show.
How,
Colin.
it's liberals that get triggered by stuff.
He just fucking sucks the life out of everything.
Get so triggered and uppity over a comic book character. I personally, like, I'm not into comics myself, but it's hard for me to imagine being particularly concerned about, the sexual orientation of a comic book character. And as far as I believe Hunter's point about having role models, I think that is important. I think that it's not simply just a matter of, oh, well, so who cares what the sexual orientation is, because the argument that will be levied by some social conservatives is, who cares? Let's not talk about it. In other words, let's keep everything straight. The problem with that is that you do have bisexual people out there. You do have homosexual people out there, people with other sexual orientations. They deserve representation in media. And I think it's important, especially given that they have higher suicide rates than the average population, especially in youth. So I think that's important to validate their existence. So
all right, we're about to go into
my
the
Discord right now is kind of having a big flickering issue, so I'm going to restart it. But yeah, no,
looks like we're about to done with the opening statement. Okay. So
next is going to be
one more.
Lumiru.
Alrighty, I was ready for some people to worry about, the changing of Superman. Of course, that's not the case here. It is his son. I was excited because to me, there's a discussion to happen that we do see people come out. A lot of us are still figuring out our identities, and sometimes we've thought them through and they shift, and that's okay.
We'll see.
I don't think it should be necessarily a huge issue. As to the point that the LGBTQ community should be rejecting these things, the LGBTQ community is, of course, as all communities, they're diverse on this. A lot of us are concerned with poor writing in of our characters. And this is a topic I personally
That's
dive
why I
into,
agree.
especially as a
I like that.
non-binary person that doesn't get a lot of decent media representation, if any at all. And so when anything does come out, it feels very impactful. And how is this going to show people what non-binariness is? What does this say about non-binary people? Why are they going to get upset? And so I do want to see those characters, new characters, decent characters, complex characters, and a wide range of those characters coming out and representing the diversity of whether it be bisexual people or non-binary people or Black people. I think that's very important. Um, as we expand our understanding of minorities and our representation of that within media. So I was curious, and if we could, I know someone already kind of asked, I'm curious what you meant in terms of like wholesome representation. Um, I was wondering because I'm wondering if you're referring to something specific you saw that you were kind of like shocked on, that you felt was out of place for children. Because I'm assuming this isn't you. I've run into some people who do think like just showing a gay kiss is very intense, where I know you're not taking that position. I think that's pretty absurd because we see heterosexual kisses all the time. That's not particularly wild. And I do think it is just like letting bisexuals exist is good. Cool. Glad to see it happening.
Okay, and we're gonna wrap up the intros with Dr. Heemed out.
Oh, see, I thought we already had all these
All
people.
right,
Man, I was way
awesome.
behind.
I thought
There's like
there
3
was a lot
people
of
left.
cool, interesting introductions. I'm looking forward to getting into the meat of it. I personally think representation matters, and politics is pretty much in everything. It's very hard to make
Yes, it
something
is.
that's
It
not
is in
political in
your
some way or
fucking
another, especially
cereal
when you're
in the
making
morning
a fictional world that's loosely
and your
based on the
fucking
real
Lunesta
world.
at night,
This
baby.
isn't like Osmosis Jones or something where it's taking, or Magic School Bus where it's taking place like in a microscopic world that can be unpoliticized, just to be wholesome. Then furthermore, you can see examples like with Barbie. Now there's more, Barbies that are in STEM, for example, and you can see that these kind of things have a massive effect on being role models for kids. And I think that it's kind of hard to measure the immediate impact of these kind of representations for kids in the immediate time, but in the long term I think we can see that they have amazing outcomes. And then again, furthermore, to talk about the representation, I'm an adult, and my whole life I never saw a brown guy be a superhero or be the main character of any movie unless it was like to meme on them. And then I saw Master of None by Aziz Ansari, where he was the main character as a brown guy. And honestly, even as an adult, I fucking loved seeing that. It was so cool to see that, like, in mainstream media, I can get representation, and I loved that. He had his actual parents in the show, and it was a beautiful thing. To respond to some of the things that you guys said, just to start kicking off the conversation, Lumi, you said that they have some poor writing sometimes, and I 100% agree with you. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of times it feels like LGBTQ characters and shows are done very lazily, and it's just done to check a tick, to check the box, and as I'm watching them in real time, I get frustrated because it's like they're basically, this relationship or this identity is being used as a prop when there could be so much more that you could dig into in depth, because like it is a very interesting identity, and all the complexities of having to deal with your parents and your family in real life, so they could be done a lot better. And I think that's something that's definitely, I'm glad that you brought that up. As for the somebody, I think Nacho said it was like a publicity stunt, and somebody brought up that the sales dropped from the first one to the second one. I mean, yeah, you could say that, but also you could say that the comic book audience has grown stale, and this might be an avenue to bring
I'm
in an
so glad
entire
somebody
new
brought this
audience
up.
of people who were never interested in comic books. And then and then so someone said let kids be kids. I found that interesting as well because like I would be down if superhero movies had no love interests or whatever, but like love interests have always been a part of superheroes, right? Like when I was a kid watching Spider-Man make out upside down with whatever her
Mary
name was,
Jane.
Mary Jane, was the sickest thing in the world.
Marijuana.
Yeah, so like of course this like weird like sexualization has always been a part of it, so I don't see I guess what the big deal is. And yeah, I think I'll just leave it up there. I think maybe we can start the discussion now.
Okay.
Okay, first of all,
What? Nacho. So now it's going to be an open discussion period. Later at the end, we'll have a closing segment before moving on to the next topic, which will be the Dave Chappelle topic. You may begin.
All right, so I want to
I was
address. Go ahead, Nacho.
sorry, I was just gonna meme a little bit. I was gonna say it wasn't Spider-Man movie like PG-17 or something. Okay, should you have been watching that?
I don't think it was PG-17.
PG-13.
Oh my god.
PG-13.
Hey,
Well, I
and
kind of
he-
wanted to.
I'm really sad to hear this because it sounds like you're much younger than I am, unfortunately. Storm is a very popular African American character, as well as Bishop. Both play very critical and pivotal roles in one of the most important animated superhero TV series, and that entire comic book line is one of the top sellers of Marvel. So, I I feel bad that you didn't get to cherish that, and you're just ill-informed on some of the diversity that was in place before your time.
I think that something to note though, and sorry, you can jump in if you would like, Heemed, because but that's very little, and that's a part of the problem is that there's so little representation that while I agree or I acknowledge your point that that's one of the top selling ones, Eve, so many people aren't necessarily going to see that if you only see the main superheroes. Again acknowledge, but I did not see X-Men. I saw Superman. I saw these other Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, those other characters. And so it's like we do need more diversity and we need more representation
Well, it also
for it to
sounds
be
like you need a
adequate.
broader knowledge of what's actually out there rather than making a broad
There's
assumption
a.
based on limited
I'm not sure if
experience.
that's
I'm
actually
really glad that,
necessary because
No,
I
Wait,
think
no,
we
no.
can.
wait. That was directed towards Lumi. I want allow Lumi to respond.
Or Heemed, but my point is like when we're talking about kids
Too
growing
damn
up
nice.
just wanting a superhero that's their own, like did you expect Heemed to go like Google people of color superheroes at the time he was so young? I think
They
that's a
didn't
little
show that in Iran,
odd.
Lumi. In Iran, they didn't have that. They only had Spider-Man and Batman.
Oh yeah, see, this is why I should have let you respond.
No, but you're right though. I think I'm not saying that there was zero, right? I think what we're saying is that it's nice. It's nice to have diversity in all kinds of ways, and I don't know. I think
it's
it's
actually.
good.
I
Well,
think
I
it's even.
think that the fact
I
the
think it's
fact that
even
it
more
has
than
to
that
be a
actually
panel.
because
Well,
I think
we'll
it's
have Hunter than Kevin.
I think it's more than that. I think it's actually much more than just like it's nice to have diversity. Of course it is nice, but I think the best way that we can look at this is just like the most detached way possible, I guess. Someone claimed they were like this is lazy or whatever. This is pandering.
Yeah,
In
that was
my
me.
opinion,
Yeah.
yeah, in my opinion, that's a really lazy argument because every single company is pandering to the base that they're trying to sell to. So comic books for a long time, quote unquote, pandered to straight white guys or the general demographic.
Didn't they pander to the outcast? That's why all of these,
Second of all,
every
no,
arc
no, no.
for every superhero is like
Obviously,
we're the
superhero
outcast.
movies.
We're the
Hold
only
on.
ones with the powers. We have to learn how to struggle
Buddy,
through
I'm
this.
not asking for like the whole
Every single
superhero backstory here. I'm just
I'm
saying
not giving you
generally
that. I'm just
speaking,
saying that
like
every person can relate to this. A trans person, a bi person, a gay person, a
yes, but
a
also
nerdy
it
kid
is
that's getting
there.
kicked down in the middle of class, or like the emo kid or whatever, can relate to these characters because they are the social outcast.
Do you
It
feel
But
wasn't
it's
pandered
more
about
about
to?
it's not
it wasn't
just
about
about the
like
Do you
social.
pandering to one or
do
the
you
other. It was about building
Nacho?
Shit, is this guy okay?
a great
Nacho,
story.
all
I
you do
think-
just read
Wait,
comic
wait,
books,
wait.
and this is like your
Stop.
minute to.
Wait,
No,
you-
actually,
I didn't even get to
wait,
finish
wait,
half of what I was
wait,
saying. I was actually in the middle of making a big point.
Wait. Okay, Hunter, please finish.
Sure. So it's not just about whether or not it's nice. It's also that when there's more inclusivity and there's more diversity and representation, this actually contributes to society becoming more inclusive as a whole. So, for example, you can say, well, it's pandering, it's virtue signaling, it's whatever. And you might be right. It probably is pandering, kind of, considering the fact that LGBT buyers make up much more loyal bases. They're much more loyal to companies that support them. And also, it's estimated that LGBT buyers make up to $800
Yes,
billion
exactly.
a year in market. So there is a massive opportunity there for them to reach out and, yes, quote unquote, pander, just like every single company in capitalism, my friend, welcome, is trying to pander in order to make money. But this pandering is a given. It's about whether or not
I'm
that
raising my
pandering
hand
is
now.
good or bad. And
I'm sick
this
of waiting.
pandering, in this case, leads to more representation, which again contributes to more inclusivity, and it contributes to more acceptance of gay people as well, or bisexual
Sure, I'm
people,
not
LGBT.
against the latter part of that statement there. I don't have any problem with that. I'm just saying, like, and that's what I think Lily said earlier, or
Lily.
basically was responding to what
Lumi?
or Lumi. I'm sorry.
Lumi?
Yeah, Lumi.
That's okay.
And it was like, I'm not saying that that the LGBTQ community should like wholly reject everything that's being like clearly like sold to them or advertised directly to them, but it's like and this case it sounds like is more of a like I worked a full day today and I got my invite last night. Okay, so I wasn't able to like look into this part. I looked into a couple other things, but I haven't looked at this specific comic. But I've just noticed. So when I'm speaking more generally as to what I've seen. So it does suck. It seems that it sucks that they're just pandering to this whole audience, and that the majority of the stories that I have seen, or the character replacements or whatever, or the oh well now such and such is like gay or such and such is bi, but it's still like a straight story. So it's like sometimes it doesn't
do you
even
feel
make
pandered
sense.
to? Nacho, do you feel
How is it
pandered
a
to when
Wait,
they
five
make
people.
a
Five people can be like.
Wait.
Can I-
Okay, wait. It was my one rule, my one main rule. Okay, so everybody wants to talk, so I'm gonna throw it to Jangles because Jangles hasn't said anything yet.
All right, so that was kind of a rhetorical
I don't think
question.
anybody
Like, Nacho,
prepares
do
for
you
these
feel
panels.
pandered to when they make a character straight? I mean, it's just ticking a box. Like, oh, they're
I-
gonna be straight. They just make
No,
them like that. It was
that's
more of a rhetorical
I feel like this is
question.
getting like misrepresented. Like I'm not.
Well,
I'm,
no, I know.
not
I'm
saying it.
memeing. I'm
Clearly,
memeing. It's
like,
fine. I'm memeing. It's fine. So I didn't expect this, but I do appreciate. Like, there are no out. I don't think there are any out and out homophobes on this panel, which is awesome. I was unexpecting it, but
Except for that Mike Pence guy.
except for that Mike.
True,
Oh,
actually.
you know what?
It's Mike
Yeah, he's
Pence.
the secret
I,
guest. He's gonna
He's
jump in
killing
the
us.
later part.
I want to
And
hear
you
his
do have
take.
the camo Tennessee hat, so like, come on. But something that is almost
I don't know.
equally
I don't think
frustrating is
anybody
when you have
prepares for
this,
these
like,
panels though. It's fun.
yeah, obviously it's representation is important, but I just hate it when they do it wrong, when they just like tick a box and like, fuck that. No, tick the box. So like, is it pandering to straight people when they make a character gay? Like, these are fictional characters. They aren't just straight. They have to be written as straight. That is a choice that has to be made, just like it would be if there was a choice that they made them gay. So like, you make a character straight as much as you do make a character gay because these are fictional characters. And it doesn't take any more. It doesn't take any more or less effort to write a character gay as it does to write them straight. All right.
Actually, I think it does because like,
represent. Well,
because
no,
of
like,
because of so much of society, like that is the like the generality, right?
I
Like
know, but
that's
you
why we call
still
like
have to make
LGBT
them.
a
Yeah, but you
minority,
still have
right?
to make them
Like,
straight. You
well,
still have to
right,
make
but
this
that's
fictional character straight. You still
wait,
have to.
wait, but if
You
you're
have to make that
focusing like on
choice.
like for comics in specific, like you could focus a lot more like on the story, et cetera, et cetera. That's not to say or to make the argument that they
So then
should.
why couldn't it just
Wait,
focus
wait,
on
but-
the story?
I-
Why
I-
couldn't they
there's-
just
wait,
okay,
wait,
fine,
there's-
be
there's-
gay and
here's
focus on
the
the
issue
story?
here.
Rate it in,
Wait,
Dylan. Rate it in.
wait. I would like to hear this logical train come to its stop before it's derailed. And Lumia wrote your name down. Don't worry.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just saying that like it does take some more thought to represent this community like effectively, and that's my critique is that it seems like they're not putting in that effort. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but this is also something. So
That's
there's
all.
a difference between representation and normalization, and in both of them, I think are important. We've talked a lot about
Yeah.
representation. Everyone who's talked about representation has done a great job. It is important to see yourself represented in media. It is important for like the mental health and the feelings of belongingness for persons of marginalized communities. But there's also another thing that you
Thank
can do,
you.
which is
I love
normalization.
you.
I hate that if to make a character gay, oh that's an event, you got to do it right. And I know that's important, and that's descriptive more so than like anything else. But I also wanted to just be normalized. I wanted to just be a box. Oh, this character is gay. Who cares? That's just a part of them. We're gonna move forward. Both of them are important. All right. And I'm not saying that in this like colorblind sense or whatever the equivalent would be for sexuality. Like, oh, they're gay. We don't mention it though. Like, I do want it to be mentioned, but I want it to be not a big deal. And that's kind of the step that we need to take if for like gay communities. Like, and what I'm getting at here is like I want it to be so normal that when I come out to a new person, there's no record scratch. That's kind of what I'm looking for, instead of being and worrying about like, because marginalized communities have to deal with this. Like, all right, you're a representative of your community, all right. So whatever you do reflects on them. So if you have a gay character and it's written poorly, this could reflect bad on an entire community, and that fucking sucks. And I want it to be so normalized. I'm really glad that he brought up a Master of None, because there was a fantastic storyline in that where Aziz was pitching a show, and Aziz is a brown person, and as part of the show, is like, hey, so here's my friends. So I have two brown friends that are also with me, and I'm going to pitch the show. And the studio was like, well, you can't have all three. Come on, like you got one. That's enough. You can't have all three of them. Because you see what the difference is. Like, there's representation and there's normalization. Like, why can't a straight audience enjoy a non-straight romance the same way I enjoyed a bunch of like straight romances, like for every piece of media that I've ever consumed throughout my entire childhood? I think that, why does it just have to be for us? Why does it have to be pandering to us? And why can't it just be a normalized part of a character trait that adds as much to the story as a straight romance does, and we can move past it in that way?
Thank you, because that's you wording that right there at the end is exactly what I was trying to say.
Well, it's
literally
not,
that's exactly.
no, it's not. It's not what you were trying to say. Like, representation is still descriptively very important. We're not there yet. I would like to get there, but until we can just have a gay character exist without it being like wondering, oh, were they pandering to the gays to make up
Yeah,
the
so
lost
just
sales?
write it.
Were they,
And like
but you don't have to
like
write it. It takes as much effort to write a gay character as it
So
does to
I
write a
just want to
straight
bring
character.
up that I think this whole argument kind of falls on its face, because you literally see we have Robin, Kitty Pryde, Mystique, Jackson Hyde, Alan Scott, Loki, North Star, Iceman, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy. Like, it's not like this is like the first character to be written this way. I think all that this is doing is, like, it seems like every single one of these comics feels the need to pander, literally pander. They're doing this for a specific marketing reason, correct? I mean, I think
Wait, do you
I'm just saying. I mean, literally,
because
it
they're
just doesn't.
bisexuals, and then it's a whole ton of, oh no, the bisexual character, we got to make a big deal out of it. I'm over here, I'm like,
I honestly don't care.
That was the Master of None argument. It's like, oh, we already have a few. We don't need any more.
No, what I'm saying is, but what I'm saying, I think you are so blind not to see that they are literally pandering for just marketing and publicity. They don't care, and these comics are failing. These comics are failing. Nobody wants to buy these. It's pretty easy to show.
This is such okay. So
we all acknowledge how.
Lumi.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Trying to bring the fire.
You rose your hand earlier. Was this what you wanted to say when you rose your hand? I just wanted to know.
Jangles handled it so blue.
I mean, this was part of what I was doing, trying to bring it back. This isn't what I wanted to say before, but.
So what I'm gonna do is, if that was what you were gonna say, Lumi, then I'm going to have it go Biggs, then Heemed, then I think Hunter tried to say something, so I'm gonna have Hunter slip in there before bringing it around.
I'm.
What?
You didn't let me finish before bringing it around to Turk. Okay, and I'll write your name down, Kevin.
Okay, so I was just going to really quickly say that can we please, for the love of God, stop making they're just pandering lol argument, because every single company panders. We live under a capitalist system, so every company is pandering in one way or another to try and make money. Of course, their bottom dollar is the most important thing, but I'm trying to say
it seems
that
to be working. They had a really good year in 2020, like one of the best years they've had.
Right, and what I'm trying to say is that it's good that now their bottom dollar is benefited by supporting the LGBT cause, by supporting LGBT rights. And again, this is a new character being written that's bisexual. It sounds like they're doing it necessary. It sounds like they're meeting all of the like conservative requirements to make this not too cringy or whatever. So can we please just pull away from the pandering thing? Every company panders. That's how they make money, of course.
Yeah, but it's like you don't fall for the great value brand right away. You wait till all the brands are out there, and you're like, all right, now I'm gonna pick.
No,
Then
you
I can pick my,
don't.
I can get my quality memes here. I
but-
can get my mid
So
tier
for
here.
example, this
No
is
one
no.
is-
So for example, it's like
Does it cheap, low quality garbage? Then I
Hey,
can
but
go
what's
how do
here.
you
that?
know
Like,
it's
Fun fact,
cheap?
that's
How
what
do
it
you?
seems like to me.
One, you don't know it's cheap. One, you don't know it's low quality. And three, you don't know if it's garbage. So you don't know that at all. Second of all, even if hypothetically speaking, it was actually low quality, nothing but virtue signaling, whatnot, this, that, and the other thing, that still ultimately contributes to the acceptance of LGBT individuals. Again, I would point you to the studies that have shown, for example,
Let the
even,
gays have
hold on.
our trash
for
too.
example, even
Yes,
the
I'm
women-
all for that.
There
Yes.
was
I'm
there
here
was a
for it.
there was a really good study that showed women who watched movies about stalker boyfriends, and then they studied those women afterwards and found that after they consumed that media, they were more likely to accept stalking behavior in their real life. So there is no argument to be made. It's a sociological fact at this point that media can play a role on your subconscious. So even if it is virtue signaling or low quality trash, which by the way, you've never demonstrated that it is in any way, but even if it was, it's still ultimately going to a good cause and is benefiting society. So the pander argument is irrelevant to me. Yes, it's pandering, but it's a good pander.
A good
And
example
also-
of that would be Q Force. Q Force is trash. It's my trash. I love it. I love Q Force. I don't care
course
what-
you
I don't
would.
care what
Of course
anyone
you
thinks.
would.
I love that show. Q
know
Force
what it is
it was the
either.
all gay show. It wasn't great. I loved it. I loved it. I felt like I had my trash. This was trash made for me. I loved it. So I want my trash. I want my good stuff, but I also want I want it to be okay for us to just have our trash. Like,
But see, I want better. I want for you to have the best representation possible.
No, you don't.
Wait,
Matt.
one sec.
This is
That was
bull.
when
How the fuck do you
Okay.
know that?
One
Wait,
second.
can I?
Okay, wait. I gotta. Okay, you all want to talk.
Ah, yes, I'm so glad I fired this panel up.
You gotta say something, but you
Really
gotta hold it off. Okay.
I gotta say something really quick.
Well, that doesn't matter to me. So,
All right.
so I want to go make sure that we get through the list first because Hunter, you've said a few things. Some people have said basically nothing. So I want to make sure we get to Heemed, Turk, and Kevin. Lumi, I don't know. Did I accidentally cut you off earlier? Did you want to say something else? Okay, no. Okay then. Heemed, Turk, then Kevin, and then we can go around to other people.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't understand this whole pandering thing. Like, we would probably all agree with you that on some level it's pandering, but as Lumi initially, the very first thing they said was that it's not good enough. One of the biggest problems is that the writing is shallow and that it needs to be improved. So we can all agree that it can use improvement and it can be pandering, but it's still been ultimately normalizing something that should be normalized and kind of giving representation, even though it's shallow. You think a fucking 5-year-old gives a shit how shallow the storyline or the layer of, they
5-year-olds
just
aren't
care
fucking
that it's
buying
someone
comics. They're
who
that's bullshit. That's a
vaguely
dumb
represents them.
The people buying these comics are not 5-year-olds.
Bro, even fucking Apu from The Simpsons. When I was a kid, I used to like identify with Apu, even though it was shallow as shit, right? So even still, even though it's pandering, like it can still be beneficial, I think.
Turk.
Yeah, so going back to what Jangles said a minute ago, I'm glad Biggs brought up the list of characters that meet this qualification. I had no idea that Iceman fit that role, because if you watch the first Iceman movie, he likes Kitty Pryde, and you don't get that vibe of what that character is. So that's normalized, right?
No,
this
that defeats
character-
the purpose. There's no representation at all there in that case.
But
If
the
you didn't
character
even,
is that characteristic.
but is it ever depicted? Is it ever shown? Is it ever communicated? Or are they just like, oh, he's gay? Because that would actually be really shallow.
this is also a reason why like
I mean,
they
that's-
changed the character is not a great argument to use in comic books because like I'm fairly certain the Iceman in the comic books, the gay one, is different than the Iceman depicted in movies. Like there are 20 million different multiverses for superheroes at any given time. Sometimes like there'll be like
Right.
5 versions of Spider-Man out at once, and they're all different characters with
So-
different
so you're
backstories.
wanting a
So let's have one of
Normal thing that
every
happens.
variety. I think that would be good, right? That would be positive, I think.
I
That's
just
what-
think it
isn't
was
I think it
really
would be
funny
good,
in
right?
The Spider-Verse movie?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
It was
mean.
awesome. It was fucking
Yeah,
awesome.
I know what I'm
I
saying.
love Spider-Verse. Yeah.
So we could just have everybody have their own variety of whatever superhero, and they could pick, and then what would end up happening would capitalism would prevail, and the most popular ones would thrive, and the ones that would fall to the wayside would probably be the ones that were
True.
less relatable. And I think what Nacho was saying earlier was that why not try to relate to the majority of people? Obviously, everybody has, you know, things like race, sexuality, but there's a whole plethora of other things you can have. You can have religion, you can have social, like, you know, stigmas and stuff like outcasts, like
so
he
many
brought
other
up.
things that
That'd
leave
be
people
straight
feeling like
conservative
outcasts.
Christians. Then that's lame. That's boring.
Well, I was just using it as an example, but I'm just saying, like, we can have a variety of things that people can relate to. We don't have to be so laser focused on these things like race and sexuality and stuff like that. And I'm perfectly fine.
There's
But
a
what-
lot of people. There's a really people that feel like they're outcasts.
These are really important issues as people like have progressed, and that's something that matters a lot. And I find it really ironic that a second ago Big said, well, I just want there to be something better. That is
do.
pandering. That's
No, no,
the
no, no,
virtue
no, no, no.
signaling.
No, no, what
You're up
I-
here-
no,
hold
no,
on, wait,
let-
wait,
let-
wait, stop. Come on, I get a second here.
wait.
You're up here
Am I
arguing hold on. You're up here arguing against this, saying, well, why don't they make a character who's religious? And then also saying, well, I just want something to be
One
better
example.
for the gays. No, my friend, you're up here virtue signaling. You're the panderer right now.
Okay, can I please respond? Okay, let me just tell you.
Yeah, of course, Biggs gets to respond to this. Then I want to throw it over to Kevin,
So,
who's been waiting.
this is just-
I didn't even get to finish my point.
wait,
Am
Turk-
I
oh, you
muted or
didn't get-
something? I mean, I got
Okay.
interrupted several
You might
times.
have been.
I've got
Okay,
several
I
more
didn't-
points to go to this guy.
Okay, I'll make sure to get it to you before I get to Kevin then. Sorry about that. Biggs?
So, okay, I want to say, I literally was just trying to think of like categories here. I don't think that we need religious superheroes. That's not what I was saying. All I was saying is that we can have something that people can relate to that doesn't necessarily have to be focused on these things. But as far as the better issue is, what I was saying was, when I started in the beginning, what Lumi had asked me before when we did the opening statements was, I want it to be the best representation possible. And I feel like what you're getting fed is this fucking cookie cutter bullcrap, and you're buying it and you're taking the bait. And I don't want that. I want the best. And if, like I said in the beginning, if it's something that's good and it's done in a way that is both how you and the majority of people would want it to be shown, I'm all for that. If it's done in a sensitive way, in an understanding way, like, it can be a good comic. I haven't seen it. The issue doesn't come out till November. What I'm saying is we need to have things that are good. And I just think that the whole point is we're seeing all these things getting flipped to all these like minority characters and things like that. And I think that the majority is, like Nacho said, is lazy, just carbon copies of the other things. And I want it to be better for you.
What is an
I
example?
want. You're so virtuous, dude. Over
What is an
arguing
example-
against
what
it
is an
while
example of a
saying
lazy?
I'm sorry, was he finished, and can I respond because he was addressing me directly?
Okay, so...
Go ahead.
I'll be very quick.
Okay, I'll have you respond, then I want to have Turk finish before we move to Kevin.
Okay, really quickly. All I want to say is I hear you, and I continuously fight about, you know, what the next non-binary representation looks like, et cetera, et cetera. I want it to be good too. But one of my concerns is I'm not willing to give up having representation, especially as a non-binary person. Now, with bisexuals, I feel like, okay, if bisexuals want to like discuss it and dive deeper and improve those characters, sure. But at the risk of it not being there, I couldn't have had that. I needed non-binary characters sooner because I didn't even know my identity existed. And so for you, I appreciate you appreciating quality. I dislike that you assume the gays don't care about quality, that we don't care
I did
about
not say
quality, that
that.
we can't manage that on our
I
own.
just think they're letting the wool be pulled over their eyes.
That excitement that you see, that eagerness that you see, is having a lack of representation. And you holding the quality so much higher and acting like you care about it for my interest is really frustrating, because it just feels like you're trying to gatekeep the potential for us being on screen. I'm pretty certain that we can have those critiques. Not that you can't have an opinion on it, but it feels really weirdly condescending when you're like, I just feel like you guys are accepting too easily. Like, understand why we would accept so easily, and recognize that we are having those communities and our those conversations in our communities, because it is happening.
What's up, butter on rye
Look
bread?
on YouTube. Come by my stream sometime. It happens.
What's up, butter on rye
We don't
bread?
need you to do that for us. We don't need you to virtue signal for us. But that's my final thoughts on that.
Okay, so I gotta throw it over to Turk because I want to make sure that they get to finish the point.
Yeah, so going back to what I was saying, this list has characters that fit this certain characteristic. And to Jangles' point here, an easy Google search of the Marvel characters that fit this characteristic is 88. That's what I counted on there. That's a whole bunch of boxes being checked.
It's
Would you rather have
Peabody.
more
What's up,
boxes
Peabody?
being checked? Because I think that's what your
Hope
argument
you're doing
was. Or
well
would
this
you rather
weekend,
have
this
more
evening.
impactful boxes being checked, which goes to Biggs's argument. I still have a second point I'd like to make after this. So Jangles, feel free to answer that question.
Yes.
You want more boxes or better boxes?
Yes.
Yes to it all.
Yes.
Why not both? Why not both?
Yeah, why not both?
Because
like, I don't like it.
Because
I don't,
you can only have so many gay characters.
yeah, you both of you were making
But-
the match or none argument that I was just talking about. Well, okay, we already have this representation. How much greedier are you gonna get? Like,
How much
why
No,
can't we
you
have
made
both?
that argument. You said I want more boxes checked.
But yeah, so,
So you want more boxes.
the crux of my argument was the difference between representation and normalization. Right? Because right
And
now
it's-
in
Sorry, go
right now in the queer community, like we do still need representation. Like any gay character, that is going to be representative to a certain extent of our community, in the same way a straight character would not be. A straight character could basically be anything, and it's not going to reflect on straight people the same way it does for us. That's descriptively what is happening. It might always be the case for minority groups, like just numerically smaller groups. That might always be the case, but to a certain extent, I want it to be pushed for normalization. I kind of want to do. I kind of want to have it be a box to check. Because I'm sensing this.
So you want your cake and you want to eat it too, right?
Yes.
So basically,
what
the
else are you
list-
gonna do with the
so-
cake?
Cake is
no,
good.
No, no, let me finish.
What else are you gonna do with the cake?
So Biggs listed a list. There were several very notable X-Men characters on there. Iceman was for one, and Kitty Pryde, I think, was another one. Those are two pretty critical characters in the Marvel universe currently.
Should we be happy with that?
I don't know. You tell me. Is that box being checked good enough? It sounds like that's
as
no.
long as we have like one. Like, no, I want some more.
Those are two very
I don't think you have to like set a specific line here. I don't think you need to be
You
like,
gotta join
well,
my
you
new
have
Discord.
Three
So
superheroes
let me
that
get to my
dating
next
back
point.
were gay, so is that good enough? Like, I don't
So
think
let
that
me
it's
get to
about
my
that. I
three
think it's
brown
about
characters in a
again,
show
it's about having both the quantity and quality.
So
But
let me get
at
to
the
my
end
next
of the day,
question. Let me get to my next question. So, with this all in mind, we're taking a high profile character, Superman. We are interjecting a new characteristic onto it to check a list. It's a very impactful character. So, Jangles, by your definition, if this comic character bombs, no one buys the comics, you're completely cool with the market and the people that buy these comics not liking this character.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
sure, what?
Wait, that's a weird argument. Like, yeah, if it's a bad comic, yeah, I don't want it to be like artificially
character.
inflated up because it's just because he's not straight. But I'm sensing with Nacho, with Biggs, and with you, there's this disconnect. There's this like contradiction in your argument. Like we can't you don't like it when people laser focus on sexuality, but also they can't just be cookie cutters of
If you
straight
listen
characters
to my
like with
intro
their
argument,
sexualities.
that's not at all
That's a good
what
point,
I said,
Jangles.
dude.
Like, so
Well-
there's that contradiction there. Like, why would it be bad? Why would it be lazy? to just
True, liberal
everything
cuck.
else
I
about a
honestly
character
don't
to say
care.
sexual
Like I didn't
sexuality?
even. I
Why
don't
would
even.
that be lazy?
I don't even pay
That
attention to
implies
the. I don't
that
even
it
like
took
comic
effort
books
to
or
make them straight,
superhero
but it doesn't
movies.
take
Like I don't
effort
give
to
a
make them
fuck.
gay, which is weird.
think they're dumb.
There's
No,
so
because
much
it
more
goes-
to that character. Why is
Right.
a cookie like why is like a
Because
quote
it goes
unquote?
to
I hate the
Nacho's
word.
argument from earlier. A lot of the characters that have been injected with certain types of these new characteristics, those new injections have not been good for those characters in the markets. Their
Thanks.
comics have
Thanks,
tanked
liberal,
in
for the free
sales. Their
takes.
characters
I love
haven't
it.
been accepted into the
Yeah, but-
ethos.
Thanks for
of
hanging out, man. I
collectibles.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
but the comic books just aren't as popular as they were in the 60s.
All right, I want to address that comment right away. Hold on. Okay, I want to let you guys know. Hold on one second. You literally okay? I understand that argument. Yes, comics
be
are
wrong.
down,
I could be
but
wrong.
in
They're
no.
not. That's factually untrue.
Okay, but I want to tell you. For this specific month's in August, the second issue had 40,000 copies, right, of the new Superman, Son of Kal-El. The new Spawn had almost 500,000 copies. Okay, so like
What year did
obviously
that
there's
one
a
come out?
huge popular. It was the first issue of a new Spawn. It came out the same day as the second issue of the Superman, right? So, but all I
I don't
wanted
know
to
what
say.
year that is. Or
Wait, can
This,
I
it was just this
extrapolate?
last month when it just came out. We're talking about a brand new comic. You know that,
so
right?
just if one comic sold better than another doesn't necessarily mean that the one reason the other comic sold badly was because
That's not what I'm saying.
so
No,
there's-
that's not even what I
Well, no,
said.
no,
They
my-
haven't- that
no,
hadn't
no,
even
my
been
main-
brought up
my
yet.
big-
That's not even in the storyline
My
yet.
big
So I don't know what you're
problem
talking
is
about.
Up here is that it's a lot of people like
That you don't know what you're
Biggs
talking about.
who's
That's
up
your
here
big
trying
problem.
to say that we're actually just worried about the quality when no, you're arguing against against this at the end of
I'm
the
not.
day.
You don't even know what my
So-
argument is, Hunter. So I don't know what you're saying.
Make your argument then.
Oh.
Make it, because
Yeah,
I'm
make
having
your
trouble
argument because
following.
Okay,
I would be
let's-
willing to bet that everyone would
Here it
agree
is.
that I like what I said sounded generally
Well,
kind of like what you
okay.
were getting at.
So then what we should do is have Biggs clarify what they were saying, because I think it is the person themselves who can best clarify.
I
what
could
they're saying.
answer it for Biggs
Then-
too. It's pretty easy.
Well, I think Biggs would be the easiest to clarify. Then I want to move over to Kevin because he's been waiting so utterly patient.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I don't mean to hoard it.
Has come with wisdom, the wisdom of patience, and then we have to wrap it up because we need to move on to the next topic.
My fellow
Biggs.
red-bearded brother. I'm sorry, Kevin. I will keep it short. Basically, I think that, to me, it's pretty obvious that you're getting second-rate characters, right? I think it would be much better in the interest of everybody if these characters were new, unique characters built from the ground up to be in a way of however you guys want them to be, not to piggyback off these other big-name characters. Now, it's fine. I love having a lot of diversity in everything. But I think your guys' argument is falling flat because you're saying, like, we need so many things. We need representation. And what Kevin and I have said, or the Turks and I have said, is that, yes, you do have the representation. And more is always better. I agree with you. But I just don't want you guys to be accepting. And I'm sorry, Lumi, I don't want to make it sound like I'm speaking for any community of people, because I'm not. I'm just speaking for my own personal opinion. But I don't think that these characters are good. I don't think that they are doing it justice. Okay,
What makes those characters? What makes them second rate, in your opinion?
Because you're literally taking recycled characters. Is literally what it is.
So something that comics do
all the time. Yeah, I understand that.
You just described. You just described comics. They
So I've got
recycle
a
characters
perfect
all the
example
time.
of a good character and a bad character. So a good character would be the guys from Invincible. They take a known approach for creating a character using the same archetypes that are currently out in the market, and the character is awesome. If you watch Invincible 1, you'll watch the entire series, I guarantee it. Then you take Catwoman. You inject a certain characteristic, and the writing stinks, and it tanks. That's what we don't want. So we would love for this inclusionary character to be excellent, and we want the writing to be really good. We're not saying that there's just
I know, Jay
we
Freak.
want
It's so
you to
fun.
box
It's
and things to be
frustrating but
checked.
fun.
We want you to do the character justice. Make it a great character, and it will sell, and people will eat it up.
Yeah, and if it's a great story, wait. If it's a great story, this will be really quick. If it's a really great story and a really great character, and it really brings,
I felt like I won this topic.
In the straight audience too.
I am
it's gonna
the
bring in the cis
bisexual
audience.
Superman champion.
Then you're gonna have a great story, and you can normalize this.
But all
Does
three
that
of
make
you are
sense?
talking
Like-
about all three of you are talking about, like, oh, they need to make it a great story. They need to. Do you think that, like, anybody is making the argument that you don't have to write comics well? Why is this only a conversation? Well, no, the plot has to be good. The characters has to be well rounded. Why is that only a conversation that comes up when they make a character gay or not straight?
Exactly.
Why is
That's a really good point.
the only time that comes up? As if
It's because Dylan and Danabo picked the topic for us to talk about.
Wait. Okay, I need to cut this off because we're running out of time. I want to go to Kevin. And I see, Heem, do you have your hand up? So I'll make sure you're the first one to wrap up.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta throw it to Kevin to say his statement because he's waited so patiently.
Okay, thanks, Dylan. So yeah, just to finish off of that, plenty of thousands of mediocre comics out there that had straight or implied straight.
Oh yeah,
characters
they're all
that bombed. That wasn't seen as like, oh, the straight community had. It reflects poorly on them, but the second that it's somebody who's bi or
Kevin, you
gay
suck.
or lesbian, it's immediately seen as this,
Kevin sucks
huge politically
ass.
charged issue. So I got a few points that I want to say about this. The first one is that the fact that we had this panel tonight that Dylan and Danabo had organized, and that it got this heated about this is proof that we're not there yet. Because if we were there, this would have happened and nobody would have made a big deal out of it. But this is proof positive that the point of what people like Hunter and Jangles were talking about, and others on the panel were talking about, is absolutely vindicated there. That we're simply
no one cares if the character's straight.
And that at the end of the
when
day,
the writing is bad and the plot lines are bad, the characters are bad.
Comics, it's still nowhere
Then
near
they had to focus on LGBT. Yes, that's how they save the bad characters. They just take the bad characters and make them gay to save it.
Social conservatives, far-right people, grapers, etc., will accuse the people that run the comics of basically social engineering, that what they're doing is essentially attempting to normalize homosexuality or bisexuality or non-white.
Man, thank you guys for hanging out, by the way. I hope I'm keeping it interesting.
Yes, actually,
I'm actually happy that this topic that went pretty well.
We should have more representation of people in society. It's not like everybody in society is white and straight, and so you'd obviously want to have better representation in media. And the reason why they lose it when this happens is because they know it actually works. They know that young kids that get brought up watching these heroes and stuff in various media, they're not going in with 30 years of
I don't know. Kids aren't watching Superman and that shit that much anymore. I don't think. I think they're watching way other shit, way other things. They're watching like Minecraft videos and fucking
oh yeah, he's bi, whatever. It's not going to be a big deal. And
whatever Ryan toy openings and bullshit.
Because they're constantly trying to
they don't watch fucking,
hold back
they don't
the flood
watch
water,
comics
and
as much
it's not
anymore.
going to work out for them. But then on the far left,
I did watch the
side of things, on the more
new
socialist
He-Man with
side
my
of
daughters.
things,
That was pretty
you
good,
have,
actually.
You have the people who freak out about how, oh well, this is bad because it's just capitalism pandering and everything. And it's not necessarily all the time pandering. Sometimes you do actually have people in those communities that run companies that want more representation, so they make their products more representative. It's not always just pandering. Sometimes it is a good faith, genuine attempt. And the thing is, the reason why that pisses off a lot of more socialist and tanky type figures is that they know that it's also effective, because capitalism is the most effective economic system out there. There's a debate over how well it can work, how well we can reform it, what direction it should move in, etc. But you know, I like to see more representation of people, and I also like to see capitalism, you know, thrive. And I think that in order for capitalism to be a more effective system, the products, the commodities that are produced in there should be more representative. So if you are a liberal capitalist such as me, it's a big win. Big wins all around. Big dubs. And I want to close out by citing the guy Arthur, a friend of mine who does the artwork for my channel. He had an excellent line as he was watching this panel tonight. He said, and I quote,
Drag Queen
unless
Story
a gay
Hour.
Is put into a story with
I wouldn't send my
precision,
kids to
the
it,
character
but
should be straight,
if parents want to send their
unquote,
kids to it
you know,
knowingly,
basically
consensually,
characterizing
it's
the
not
view
my
of,
job to
modern
fucking
day
police their
homophobes
kids.
that
So I don't give a
persist to
fuck.
this day. And
if
in
a
their
library
absolute
wants to do it and they have enough support for it, go for
coping
it.
over the fact that Superman is bisexual. Also, bisexual
You're
people
good, man.
can have
You're good, Cluck.
you know, coded
I
straight
appreciate the
relationships or
interaction
whatever.
in the chat, man.
That's a thing too. So
It helps keep
thanks,
it lively for me when I'm
Okay.
not really.
I'm not supposed to give my opinion, but here is my opinion. This sucks, and it's because $25 for 27 pages. I don't read comic books, but I was looking this up while you guys were debating. I'm not gonna pay that much money for 27 pages of content. That's, I don't know.
True.
Like, I could never picture myself paying $25 for the first chapter of a very, very short book where it's gonna be what, maybe like 1,000 words in that, mostly pictures. Like, I don't know. It's just not for me.
Have you seen the comic, Dylan? Though, have you actually seen this? Have you seen?
I actually started reading.
Did
it
you
right
see
now.
John? He is
Not yet.
fucking. He is fucking. He's good looking fella.
He's
I'll tell
very
you.
good looking.
Very
He
good
is
looking
very
fella.
good looking. Yes, I have seen him. He is a very good looking individual. Now, we're gonna do wrap up. I gotta use the bathroom, so I hope you all behave while I'm gone. Heem, you can start up wrap up since you raised your hands.
All right. First of all, I'm kind of disgusted that Dylan didn't send me the link to the comic book so I could take a look as well. It's kind of rude of him to keep it for himself.
Check out
But
the private
but-
chat. There's a picture of it.
oh, really? Okay, my bad.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, anyways, I wanted to say, yeah, like again, I'm just gonna reiterate a couple of the points. First of all, I'm gonna respond. I think the comic book sales point is I don't know. I would have to look more into it rather than just, oh, there's current 1 month sales a week or whatever compared to another comic book. Like, I think comic book sales in general have probably been dropping over forever. And then when you say make new characters and make storylines around them, I think that's kind of weird because it's really tough to get shows off the ground
We're not
or
talking about shows, we're talking about
storylines or
comic
characters
books.
off the ground. It's much easier to integrate them into already established storylines, which is exactly what's happening here, right? This isn't like Superman himself is like all of a sudden bi now. It's Superman's son. And why can't Superman's son be bisexual or
fine, he can
whatever,
be.
right? And it's like,
So
how else are you going to
I-
introduce these characters
I
into
do
the main
a-
storylines?
I did
The
a bunch of
storylines
other
are from like the
panels,
40s.
like
They
primes.
didn't have any gay characters or LGBTQ characters in Superman when it initially came out, and this is one way to introduce, you know, their side characters. And then one other
I
thing I
did
wanted
Prime's
to mention
panel,
was that
and
I wonder,
did,
like, do you maybe the conservatives, when you're going around to answer, if you could answer this
Sorry, I'm
question,
trying to
I'd
listen to
really
him too.
appreciate it. Whether you think that, like, if there's a gay or LGBTQ relationship on in a storyline, whether it needs to have like more explanation of the underlying backstory versus a straight relationship. Whereas I feel like many straight relationships are often very shallow in TV as well. And you know, all of a sudden it's like we have this high expectation for LGBTQ relationships. I don't really understand why. A lot of times you see straight relationships, like there's no character development here. They're just, I don't know, they're just fucking. I don't know why they're fucking, but whatever, you know. And then I to
Yeah, you
close
just got to
off
get out
again,
there,
I just
liberal. I
want to
mean, you just
say,
got to
yeah,
do
like
panels,
representation
do
matters.
as many open panels
I
as you
mentioned the
can.
Barbies that are now
Han
in STEM.
has his
I can
proving
mention
grounds with
the
like low
Aziz
viewer
Ansari being on
people.
Netflix and having a
Dylan's recruitment
normal
panel for the HippyDippy recruitment with
non-meme
Danabo
brown
and
man
Mr. Geek.
character. I can bring up I
Get
can
in
bring up
people's
many examples
discords.
where
Just
you
got
look
to
at
do
me
that.
on this panel right now. من تنها ایرانی هم که روی این پنل هستم. اومدم برای شماها. And yeah, there we go. We got representation here as well.
Yeah, what he said. And now we're gonna throw it over the bigs.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm perfectly fine with them doing a bisexual gay character. I don't mind that at all. But I just want to make sure that it's done in a positive way, and I want the character to be gay because the character is gay, not because they felt like they needed to force it. And that's what I want to make sure is that it's done in a way that people can be, you know, it's naturally input. It's done in an organic way. It's not like ham-fisted. I think we've seen in the past some things, especially like as these type of issues were being more and more accepted in society, we saw a lot of like really bad representation in that. And like, I know most people can agree that that was bad, but like you said, like Lumi said, like we do want more representation is good. And I agree with that, but I just want to make sure it's done in a responsible way, a sensitive way, and it's done in an ethical way. And I personally, as far as like the whole like issue with like kids and then like children's media, I don't really think comic books are children's media these days for the most part. I think most of these comic books these days are probably geared for more older people anyways. But I do appreciate like anything that we can have where it's done in a way that's positive, naturally, and like not just like forced in there. And so that's like my biggest argument is like we don't want it to force it. We want to make sure it's like just like naturally organic and just kind of like flows with the story. I don't want it to be a jarring effect. And I honestly like I think this is going to be a good story, and I actually am going to look into it now because I do like the visuals, especially like I really like the artwork in comics more so than the actual writing and stuff. So I do find it interesting. And man, that new Superman John, he does look pretty good. So
Okay, next we're gonna throw it over to American Nacho.
Yeah. So wait, hold on. Can you skip me for a second?
Okay.
Sorry.
The prospect of talking about the queers has shook him, so we're gonna throw it over to Jangle.
I want to get to a point where
we're back.
The argument is no longer made that, oh, they made the character gay, so it must be covering for bad writing. Like that's the kind of point I want to get to. So I don't want qualifiers. I don't want it to be like you don't force gay characters into media the same way you don't force straight characters. Sometimes you write it, all right. Like there's a lot. If you're worried about forcing characters, there's a lot more. Like he made a good point. There's a lot more problems with like forcing romance between like two straight characters with horrible chemistry. That's a far bigger problem, but it's one that's talked about a little bit, but not, you know. I don't like this notion that like if they make a character gay, it must be because they're trying to cover for bad writing or it's an excuse for bad writing. Like no, that's not the case. It actually takes companies get a lot more pushback for including gay characters than they do for not having them. So that's not a great argument. And to answer like a Turk's question from earlier, like how many is enough. I will not stop until every comic book character is gay. Every single one of them. No more straights are left in there. Now that's only step one. Step two is like no more straights are allowed on TV or in movies. All right. These are the first two
Amen.
steps of my grand plan to make sure that we finally get our utopian society where straight people are just not allowed anymore. Everyone must be gay. And I think
Amen.
we're on our way, and my plan will be enacted.
Don't
Okay.
tell them the
Next.
gay agenda. Jeez.
Next is gonna be Turk.
Yeah, so if DC wants to make a character that has these certain characteristics, and sorry if I keep saying that phrase, I've got kids that are still awake. DC can go and do that, and if they want to pump it up as much as they want with marketing, and if the market loves it, hey, I'm all for it. It's an art form, like we're about to talk in just a second. And if people like it, it will become normalized. I was actually interested to hear that there's a list of many very high profile characters that already fit this checkbox that y'all were really wanting to see.
Man.
But that's not good enough. So
All right.
I'm really interested.
So how can
to
I bring the
see
spice tonight,
what
guys?
a good enough checkbox is for.
I think we're gonna
character,
do the
and
probably
maybe this Superman
the
fits
Dave
that role.
Chappelle topic,
To answer Heem's
cancel
question, I might
culture,
be paraphrasing it. Should
or
we be,
the Abbott's
focusing
mandate
on
bans.
the backstory of
So
this
give me some
characteristic? You might not be listening because
give me some ammunition, okay?
Great for
Dave
being
Chappelle
okay.
canceled.
I would
Should we
say
cancel
if that's
culture?
the type of comic
Does
you're
Dave Chappelle
trying to
deserve to be
create,
canceled?
yeah, if it's
And
important
two,
to his character arc,
should
current story arc, and all that stuff,
should Abbott
feel
have done the
free to
bans
go
on
down
mandates?
that
So
path.
come on,
You know,
guys.
many
I need some.
comics go
I
in
need some.
many different
I need
ways,
some
and that's
ammunition.
the art form of comics. But if we want this Superman to be a BA and go save the world, I don't know if this characteristic is important to that storyline. So I think it's really pivotal for DC to pick where they want this character to go and how that gets adapted by the market. So sorry, Heems, you didn't get to hear my response.
Okay. Now we're gonna throw it over to.
Wait, sorry, I gotta say, I can hear you. I just have my headphones loud, so that I was listening.
Okay. Now I'm gonna throw it over to Nacho. Maybe you can answer this one.
Yeah. So all right. So yeah, I'll answer Heem's question too. Like I feel like even the straight characters feel forced sometimes.
Not all
too.
three
Like,
topics.
It doesn't really
The
matter
mandates
to me. I just want to generally good storyline. Period. So if you're gonna make this some kind of focus,
I get it.
or if you're
I'm
gonna
so
make this
dumb.
a selling point,
Woo,
then yeah,
right over my head there,
give
J
me a
Freak.
fucking
You
story
got me.
behind it too. Okay, because
Oh,
at the end
man.
of the day,
+1 to J Freak
it's
there.
more of like a we want
+1
good comics,
to
we want
J
good
Freak.
stories.
J
We want
Freak
good
1,
entertainment.
big
Okay,
0.
so I could care
okay?
less whether the characters are kissing dudes or kissing each other, kissing women or kissing aliens. I don't give a shit. Okay, I'm a Star Trek fan, baby. All right, like we can have humans making out with aliens for all I care. All right, I just want a really good story at the end of the day. So I mean, if you want to buy that, then and support that, then that's fine. Yeah. So
Mandates.
and I thought it was weird that like Kevin brought up all these straw mans that nobody was in here talking about. Like they're making my kids gay, but then followed it up with like something about like they're mad because it works. I don't know what's going on over there. And then you added yourself by like telling us there was like homophobes in your chat. So I don't know what's going on over there, buddy. But I don't know if you're in the same panel. That's it.
Okay. Next, we're gonna throw it over to Lumi.
Oh, that was good.
I am just excited to see more characters representing this and acknowledging there's diversity within those groups.
Amazing.
One of those
Amazing.
stressors is just being that tokenized character. So it's frustrating to hear people saying, well, we already
That's
checked
funny.
your box. Move along through.
That's not
You're
what we're
fine."
saying.
I'm sure they would not.
I
feel
was just
great
saying that
is
your
if we
argument was
checked
there's
our
not enough fucking
heterosexual
representation when we
straight dude
listed the
box and then
representation. Like
swept
obviously
them
more is
away
better,
under the rug.
but like
That
don't just
seems
fucking just because you
horrifying.
don't care to look at the other ones.
Of
Like
course, we
it's not
care
it's not my
about
fault.
having quality. I think that was pretty clear. We had that hashed out that discussion a little bit,
That's
and
okay.
I'm just excited to see us diversifying and showing
Yeah, I
people
like
that
diversity too. Definitely.
bisexuality, the LGBT community, non-binary folk,
Look at
people of
this.
color, we're out here and we are diverse and we don't look like just one character, just two characters, but we have many stories to tell. And I think that one of the goals in diversifying
That's what comedy's
characters
for,
is
Liberal
telling
Cluck. It's
a
for
wide
making people
range of
uncomfortable. That's what's
stories,
funny.
and some of those stories
If you
are gonna
watch
be
Dave Chappelle's stuff,
incredible, and
he
some
has a
of them
very
are gonna
synced
be
formula.
crap.
He usually
Let
rags on a one
LGBT
specific group
folks
through the
sometimes
majority of
be
his
crap
thing. He has a
too.
story that he follows through the whole show, and then he has like a few other
Turk, did I
anecdotes
miss you?
that are like a tight
Yeah,
anecdote, like
you got
two or
me.
three
I
skit,
think
like two or three within the
Nacho had
same.
the pass.
But I gave it back to Nacho.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so everybody got to go. Okay, wonderful.
Hey, me.
I didn't
Let the
get-
gays have the
oh, sorry.
trash.
Biggs and
Yeah.
okay.
How
Kevin.
did you forget about your star player, Dylan? Come on, man.
So basically, yeah. So just for the closing remarks here,
I thought
had
we
a
were- I
few
thought you
things
already
to
did his
say.
closing
I
remark.
also want to quickly address the point that Nacho brought up when he said, "Oh, I don't know what panel you were on, talking about
Yes, he was
homophobia or
literally
whatever."
talking about
Well,
like
no, it wasn't homophobia.
he was making fun of the people that are worried about bathroom bills. Like that's what the joke was.
No. I said I quoted
Sorry.
my graphic,
Nacho.
the guy who does the graphic design for my channel, who was making fun of homophobes. Because here's the thing. Homophobes in 2021, if they want to be on serious platforms, if they want to get on big platforms, if they want to be taken seriously anywhere, they can't really say the stuff they would have said 20 years ago. They need to be a little bit more clever. This is how the culture war works. Liberals gain ground, conservatives try to adapt to it and retone their speak. And so now you hear things about, oh, it's not necessarily wholesome, or oh, it's not necessarily doing justice, or it's effective to the LGBTQ plus community. 20 years ago, it would have been, maybe some F slurs, that kind of stuff. These are where we see the dog whistles move. Now, I'm not saying that anybody here would have said that, but what I'm saying is that in the culture war, conservatives have to adapt their dog whistles to the contemporary discourse. Otherwise, they will be dismissed right off the bat. And so it is insidious. It is pernicious in that sense. And it's something that people need to be aware of. Now, on the point about representation, I think the fact that we have
I'm all for trans people.
The panel was this heated is proof that we're not there yet. And that 88
I just
characters or
don't
whatever
care.
is clearly
Like,
not enough.
I
for
want
the
people to be free. I would be
thousands or
down with like
thousands of,
individual bathrooms everywhere.
straight
Like,
or implied
that would
straight
honestly be better
characters.
for me because I'm a
I
dad and
also
I
do
hate
think
having to decide if I let my daughters go into the
apart from
bathroom by
just
themselves in the
social
women's bathroom or
aspect
take
of
them in the
this,
men's
there
bathroom.
is definitely the
That's fucking
economic
terrible. I
aspect
hate
where
that.
you'll see
Right?
people, the more
So like,
populous
it just depends on the
types or
place, what they
the
have, like
takey
you know,
types
whatever.
try to say how this is horrible for because it's capitalism trying to basically instill false consciousness in people in minorities or traditionally less representative groups. No, I think it's based that groups are being more representative and are represented. And I think that contrary to the meme of late stage capitalism, we're in a very early stage of capitalism, basically just coming out of the Industrial Revolution. We got millions of years to go. I would like to see a more mature capitalism. I'd like to see a capitalism go into adolescence and adulthood, be more, definitely more representative, but also,
there's something to be
of
said
course,
about him
more
properly
inclusive. I
generating
want to
type
see
things.
negative income tax. I don't want to see
What do you mean
homelessness
that's worse?
anymore.
What do you mean that's
All that
worse?
kind of stuff. Plenty of reforms that we can make. And I think that all across the board, if you are a liberal capitalist, whatever they call it, quote unquote, woke capitalism. Well, if this is woke capitalism, then that's based, and this is a big dub, and everybody who's opposed to this.
I'm pretty sure this comic's
losing
gonna
their minds
fail,
over this
and then
getting
I'm gonna
triggered,
laugh when I look back at it. But
they
we'll
can
see.
cope and seethe. So thank you.
Nobody cares, Kevin. Kevin is terrible.
Okay, and Biggs, you haven't gone yet?
No, I went. I went like one of the
Okay.
first ones. Sorry.
Hunter, had you gone yet?
No.
Okay, what's up with the camera?
My camera?
Yeah, nobody can. I can't see you.
Wait,
Me
you-
and Hunter are both on camera. on
I
Discord,
can
but
see
we're
him.
not on
See
stream.
both of them.
I can see
Wait,
both
I'm
of
on-
them. So why is it that I cannot?
I can see everybody.
Oh, now
I'm
I
on
can see
camera.
you. Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I just think it's really funny on this panel. It's pretty obvious the people with the right wing position have not really listened, or
Oh, you
at
meant
least
that's the
haven't
worst.
listened enough to adapt their opinion. We still kind of end with the same thing. Oh, I just want the characters to be better. I
Yeah,
just
the
want
daughter
them to be-"
bathroom aside. yeah,
That at the end
definitely.
of the day is virtue signaling. That at the end of the day is pandering, because it puts you in a position where you can look like
doesn't know
you're
what he's
on the
talking
moral
about, so
high
he's gonna
ground,
talk a
and
bunch
you
of
just
bullshit.
care about the gay people while simultaneously arguing against representation of gay people in media because it's not good enough. It's very contradictory. It's hypocritical, and it's just really ironic because that in and of itself
Isn't it
is
ironic?
actually pandering.
Don't you
Second
think?
of all, Turk
A
brought
little
up how he
too
was really
ironic.
excited how he just learned about
Hunter
this
is mad
new
because I
list
fucking
of
broiled his
gay
ass in the last fucking
superheroes
thing
or
around here.
something. The fact that he just learned about it exactly proves our point. We're talking about representation and the benefits that that instills in society. And if you just learned about this now, that's probably not very good representation.
He has nothing to
So
say.
I don't know why you made
Absolutely
that point.
nothing to
Defeated
say.
your own point, but either way, overall,
He's a rhetoric boy.
Gay or bisexual Superman or the son of Superman who's bi sounds like a cool direction. I'm not into comics, but again, more representation seems to be a good thing. So it's based.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over. Oh, Jangles, have you gone yet?
No, but I just wanted to say that let the gays have our trash.
I mean, if
Wonderful.
we're making responses to rebuttals now, I can respond to what Hunter just said.
You can respond in the opening of the next topic, but I don't know if you want to waste time on that because the next topic is Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special. Dave Chappelle released a new Netflix special, which I advised all of you to watch. And if you didn't watch it, a mod of mine by the name of Fluff actually did a cheat sheet for you. That's 8 minutes long that gets you a lot of the content and essence of the debate that I linked into Discord, which I will now link in Twitch chat for those who have yet to see the Netflix special but want to know what we're talking about. Fluff can link it themselves, and I will also link it. And so the question it's a few questions that I will propose. The first one is, was the special transphobic?
Oh, lobotomy is now following. Thank you so much.
Canceled. I put that in quotation
Thank you so
marks
much.
because everybody has a different definition for that
I
word.
appreciate
And
that.
the third one is,
you're all amazing for hanging out.
due
Thank you
to
so
the
much for hanging out,
recent,
everybody. This is like one
protests
of my
from
best
certain
streams
trans
ever.
employees at the
I just want to
company,
thank you guys
should it
for
be
all
removed
hanging
from
out.
Netflix?
7
These
viewers
are
right
more
now.
questions I'm throwing
I'm
out.
normally a
Applaud
3
this.
viewer, Andy, so
You
you guys
can
have
also
more than
take the discussion
doubled
anywhere
my
about
fucking
this.
ego, and I
So,
appreciate it.
I'm
So now I can
going
rub it
to
into
start,
Looter's face.
I'm not going to surprise
When I see him next
I'll
time,
give
it's going to be
time
awesome because I'm going to be like,
Start in
haha,
the left-hand
Looter.
corner
Thank you
with
so much.
American
Hell
Nacho.
yeah. Don't tread on me, bitch. Oh, Brant.
Yeah. So I think
Brant.
that anybody who doesn't
Liberty.
Oh man, you asked 3 questions there. What did you say? Is it? Can you just really quickly
I'll
rattle
repeat it
them
one
off?
more time. Okay. The first one is it transphobic? The second one is I already forgot it. The second one is one of them was should it be removed?
Yeah,
and
canceled.
Should he be
yeah,
canceled?
and should Dave be canceled? Yes, those are the 3.
Okay, yeah. So no, it's not transphobic. I think it's quite the opposite. Should it be removed? No, and should he be canceled? No. I think this is actually anyone who didn't like. If you watch this and you don't understand, you need to watch it again, or maybe you need to watch more of Dave Chappelle's content.
What was
maybe
the
you should definitely go watch
was the
his
special transphobic? Should it be
8 minute,
canceled?
46
And should it
seconds
be removed from
special.
Netflix? Yeah.
And then you'll
So no,
understand what's
no.
going on in
No,
here. Like,
across the board.
He very clearly lashes out at the LGBTQ community a couple times, but he's grieving on stage for his friend, not only for his friend, but he feels like this is my interpretation of a lot of what was going on, and also for like comedy in general. And at a time whenever this is supposed to be like a time where, especially comedy as an entertainment value can bring people together, like it just feels dishonest to me if you're taking this in a way that like, oh, he's a homophobe, he needs to be canceled, oh, he said all these crazy things, because it's really clear to me after seeing all the stuff that's been like spread out on Twitter about this, all these like 1-line, 2-line sentences that are being shared. It's really clear that they didn't watch the whole special, and that probably a lot of them haven't watched any of his other content either. So I have more on that, but I'll let everybody else go, or I'll just keep rattling on.
Okay. Next is going to be Biggs.
Yeah, so I don't think that it was transphobic. Like Nacho said, I think there were some actually parts in there that he was actually advocating for trans rights, especially when he was talking about specifically the joke about the bathroom thing. I think he was making fun of the people that were so the conservatives that were so ridiculously worried about like bathroom safety and stuff like that. So and like Nacho said, he had a personal friend that he knew that was trans that had committed suicide. So I think that that's something that he does deeply care about. But I think what he was actually trying to do on the special is to try to just kind of see like, hey, you know, I'm actually like, I honestly do believe, and as he actually said it in the special, that he is jealous at how successful these movements are going based on how the civil rights movement had gone. And I can see how people of different minorities can be kind of envious of each other, and I respect that, and I think he does a pretty good job of kind of tempering that and doing kind of like a little bit of making fun of everybody. I do want to say though that if you look back at his previous specials, both his new and his old, he does have a very specific formula that he follows. He usually has a joke that he carries throughout the whole show, the whole special that he does. He also usually has some type of people that he's specifically targeting. Like in his earlier specials, it's mostly making fun of white people and racism. And then after he started getting attacked by in the media by like trans journalists and things like that, he started to attack them back. Now I don't necessarily agree with that myself, but I do want to say that I think that he did a decent job kind of like towing the line of being just enough of a pushing the line just far enough, but not going too far. I think my stuff froze. What happened? Did I lose internet?
Similar to this, where Dave
Can you hear me okay? Am I
Chappelle will
back?
come out and say, I'm not transphobic, but a lot of the things he say message to typical transphobic talking points and are very traditionally conservative and not rooted in academia when it comes to issues. It seems that he's still conflating sexuality and gender, which, like, I mean, obviously people are going to get upset when you're continuing to go down this path. Should Netflix have removed it? I don't know. Probably not. In the end, it's their decision. They have a lot of different opinions, a lot of different specials, a lot of different. You have conservative media, you have progressive media on there. So I don't know. It's their decision whether or not they want to remove it. I think if the LGBTQ community wants to cancel their Netflix over this, I can totally understand it, and I can see why people think it's transphobic.
You guys can see me okay though? Everything's good on my end?
Okay. Biggs, are you back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like to finish your opening statement?
I totally don't know what happened. Sorry about that. It literally just everything just froze on my end. So I don't know how far you heard, but basically I don't think it was transphobic. I thought there were parts of it where he actually defended trans rights, especially with making fun of the people that were so concerned about like these bathroom bills in North Carolina and stuff like that. I do think he does push the line very far, but I think overall, if you look at his previous works, he does have a very formulaic way of doing his shows. He usually picks a target. In his earlier stuff, it was white people. now, since he's been attacked in the media by like trans journalists and stuff like that, now he's focused on the trans people and LGBT community, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's his choice to do. I don't think he should be canceled. I don't think Netflix should remove his shows at all. I think they paid him a lot of money. He's getting him a lot of publicity. I think it would be a bad move. I don't think we'll see him for a while. I'm guessing, like you said in the thing, he'll probably be on a break for at least a few years, and then he'll come back with a vengeance, and hopefully he'll pick a new target to make fun of based on whatever's going on in society at the time.
Okay, next is going to be Hunter Avalon.
Sure. So, I'm not really here to be the joke police, and I'm not really here to
I'm sorry about that, everybody.
analyze whether or not his comedy stand-up act was good or not. Again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before: is media can be good, it can be bad, and it can reaffirm good ideas and it can reaffirm bad ideas. And in this case, if we want to take it that approach, then it's pretty obvious that when you have a massive public figure like Dave Chappelle, who's getting viewed by millions upon millions of people, come up and basically say he's on Team TERF, which is like the known anti-trans movement, like, yes, that's definitely harmful. However, I'm not up here trying to say that Dave Chappelle should be canceled, because the thing is a lot of Dave Chappelle's bad ideas that he was spreading, unfortunately, are already believed by a lot of people. And that comes from the fact that there's a lack of education. So rather than like canceling Dave Chappelle's controversial thing where he says opinions that a ton of other people already think, instead it'd be better to actually try and educate and try to explain, like, hey, sex and gender, this is different, this is why trans people are valid. And I think that that's why a lot of moderates find this humor or that stand-up special very funny, and it's because they don't quite understand the intricacies of this issue. And I'm not impugning them for that. They don't necessarily, I'm not saying they have to understand, but I think that we'd have a lot more progress by pursuing education rather than like canceling Dave Chappelle, because even
Whoa,
if we got
Looter,
rid
it's
of the
Looter
Dave
just
Chappelle
subscribed
special,
again. Thank you so
guess
much,
what? There
Looter.
would just
You're
be
amazing.
something else up somewhere else that
Welcome.
was saying the same dumb fuck talking points. Instead, we actually need to nip it in the bud.
Okay, next is going to be Jangles.
So I did grow up on Chappelle's show. I was a white kid who grew up in the early 2000s.
How you doing, Looter? You're the
Someone who grew
best.
up on the Chappelle show, which
Thank
makes me the
you.
absolute worst type of person.
Thank you,
Those of
Looter.
you who grew
Looter
up
is an
with me in
all-star.
your late
One of my
20s, early 30s,
first
you knew that guy. I was that guy.
subscribers. You guys are
It was
fucking
awful.
just
I
fucking
apologize
amazing.
for
Thank you for
everything I've
hanging
ever
out.
done, being influenced by that. So I am here to be the joke police. I'm not like Hunter. I am here to be the joke
Perfect.
police. All right. Stand-up comedy is my favorite art form. I fucking love stand-up comedy. It is one of the best art forms out there in the world. And one of the reasons is that it's very, very hard. It is hard to be funny on purpose. It's a very, very difficult medium to get into. And that's why anytime this happens, like a comedian makes an edgy joke or something, I brace for impact. I buy multiple bottles of alcohol because I know I'm going to see the dumbest shit takes on Twitter the next day from people who care nothing about comedy and don't know anything about like how jokes are constructed. It is hard to be a transgressive comic. That's why the greats are all transgressive, like Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Louis C.K. Unfortunately, they are very, very edgy comedians, but it's very difficult. It's easy to offend people. It is very, very hard to offend someone, but then like try to get the audience to come with you over that line to make the joke funny. It's very, 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 very challenging, and I hate. And comedians who complain about it are always coping. They're always coping. They're not good enough. It's very hard to do that, and you're just not good enough if you offend people instead of making them laugh. It's because you sucked at your job. Your delivery was bad. I do think that it wasn't the most transphobic thing in the world, and I do think people should be accurate when they describe this. It was not the worst thing that has been out there. It was bad. I think the jokes were transphobic, but I don't think they were the worst things in the world. Should it be canceled? Who cares? He's rich and famous. He's taking a break. It doesn't matter if we try to cancel him. It's not going to work. The worst thing that'll come out of it is another bad stand-up special where he spends 45 minutes of the 1 hour runtime whining about people, like complaining about him. That's what his last couple of specials have been, and it's been kind of awful for someone who like calls himself the GOAT. They've been, let's be honest, that was a 6 out of 10 comedy special. It was okay. And if you're gonna be
A 4 out of 10, really?
Yeah, if you're gonna call yourself the greatest
4 out of
all
10,
time to get on
that's
stage, and a lot of people do put him up there, rightfully so. I like Chappelle's old stuff, and you put out like this lazy shit. Like it wasn't a special. The jokes weren't good. And should it be removed? Yeah, no, probably not. But yeah, so I'm kind of hoping to talk about like joke construction, why things work, and why like I, I should. When you're talking about especially the gay community, you can make is the edgy jokes. You can make as many edgy jokes as you want. You can make jokes at our expense. I'll even take that. But if I have heard there was a joke in that special that made me want to throw the TV through a roof, not because it was offensive, but because it was bad. Like it was a joke that I remember seeing in a 4:3 ratio on a CRT TV from Family Guy in the early 2000s. Dave Chappelle, greatest comedian of all time, made that same joke, and that shit pissed me off. I expect better from my
What was the
comedians than shit
joke?
that's been old for 20 years. So yeah, looking forward to talking about this one.
Next one is
boy.
Turk.
Oh, it's me. Okay, cool. So going to your three questions, is it transphobic? I believe it was. Some people say it was jokingly he said it, but he said many times during the special that he was transphobic, and a lot of the stuff he said definitely could be taken as that angle. So, yeah, to answer that
How is
question, yes,
the
but he's
looter?
also targeting
It's the
several
looter
other
doing tonight.
different
How you doing?
minority groups. So which one should we cancel him over? Should we cancel him over this one, or saying some pretty harsh words and hard R's on certain words?
Oh my
His
gosh.
style of humor is definitely not for everybody, but that's also one of the good things about this art form of stand-up comedy. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to go to the show. You don't have to listen to the guy. You know, he was popular and he had a funny show. I thought as for humor, it was pretty funny and entertaining. But what I'm really interested in hearing is, I think a lot of y'all are looking past the story he was telling with humor interjected into that last part, because it was a story of Chappelle growing a relationship with someone in this community who he respected as a comedian and wants to be part of his community. And whenever that person defended Dave, y'all, being people on the progressive side of the aisle,
Y'all.
went after that person. That person ended up committing a very heinous act. That, I think, is the bigger evil here, instead of Dave Chappelle saying some mean jokes. And I think it's a big pill for everyone to swallow, to look back and reflect on how you behave with other people, and we should be better humans.
Okay, next is going to be Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I just want to kind of start this off by saying, what's the bigger issue here? Is it Dave Chappelle telling, these types of jokes, or was it the audience, and the audience really having kind of over the top laughter for almost everything throughout the segment? So for me personally, I only laughed like a few times. I didn't find a lot of it that funny. I mean, now he's a comedian, and comedians get to push the envelope. They get a little bit more benefit of the doubt. They get a little bit more wiggle room, right? We expect that comedians are going to be a little bit edgy. So they kind of go through an order and answer the questions. So that Dylan had posed. So was it transphobic? Well, yeah, there were jokes inside of this that were transphobic. So for example, he compared being trans to doing blackface, for example. And it's like, okay, well, doing blackface is a choice and a racist act. Being transsexual is not. So, I mean, there's that. He said at one point that it's a quote him. He said, "Trans make up acronyms
The audience was interesting as fuck. Yeah, hell yeah.
To turf, because he hadn't heard of turf before, so he's like, "Oh, that must be another debate tactic by transsexual people." It's like, okay, but turfs are a real thing. That is a real thing. And then he goes on to basically defend turfs in the segment. So yes, the special was transphobic. He, of course, had the point where he was talking about I believe it was South Carolina, either South Carolina or North Carolina, the legislation basically saying that you got to use the same bathroom as your assigned sex at birth. He described that as a mean law, but that doesn't mean that the other jokes weren't transphobic. Like, you can do both, right? So as far as should he be canceled, well, the thing is, what does really being canceled mean for somebody like Dave Chappelle? I mean, he characterized J.K. Rowling as being canceled, but she's a billionaire as far as I understand it. So it's like, yeah, canceled. What does that really necessarily mean? should it be removed from Netflix? I would say that
Yeah,
that's
the
up to
molestation
Netflix.
joke about the priest.
The
Yeah,
Netflix
is that I like coming to that guy's
tried to
face.
say, well, yeah, he acknowledged that there were issues in this, but he didn't say that it rose to the level of hate. He said that they wouldn't platform hate. And so he also said that they've got other shows on Netflix that are, I guess, inclusive or intended to be inclusive of the trans community, which I saw as kind of cringy, because it's like, why not talk about the merits of this particular segment as opposed to saying, okay, well, this one's kind of an issue, but hey, we have these other things over here. It's like, but that's not really how it works. I mean, if you do Groyper propaganda, but then you have anti-Groyper propaganda, it's like, okay, well, I mean, whatever. I didn't really laugh that much. I found it, kind of surprising to see the reaction of the audience. Is that over the top? Now, granted, they're there. They might be told, you gotta hype it up for the cameras. But I think the audience is generally the bigger issue, because it tells you where we are in the culture. But that doesn't absolve individual actors, especially when they have an audience reach of up to 180 million people on Netflix. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. So thank you.
Whole lot of nothing and a lot of fucking air.
Alrighty. You asked about the protests, if it should be removed. I'm still looking into that, and I'm following the protests and how they're responding to that. I think that's an interesting point unfolding. And, I am pretty understanding that if you are working at a company, you would care about what they're putting out and if that's harming you or parts of your community. So,
Yeah, this is kind of a boring
canceled.
topic. I know.
I think people have already said the point. Like, he is very rich. He's taking a break
He's
right now. I
uncancelable.
don't know.
No canceling
are
of
you
Dave
saying
Chappelle.
people getting mad at him on Twitter? I'm not too. My goal isn't to be out here canceling anyone. My goal is normally I disengage with people if I don't think they can grow or I don't think I can help them in any way on that. Otherwise, I'm just not very interested in following the content. As for if this was transphobic, yeah, I see that he did advocate for the bathroom rights, for example. And I thought that in some ways he did that really well, and in others it played into some transphobic tropes, as well as we did see him come out for TERFs and just basically say,
Oh
he
yeah,
is
Sproticus
one
topics
and
way
he's
better.
on
Yeah.
Team TERF. And again, that is a
I
group
don't
doing
pick
a
the
lot of
topics. I
harm.
just show up to the
Now,
panels.
I think a lot of people get
I do
wrapped
think
up
I'll do
because
my
he
own
is
panels
clearly
eventually, but I
empathizing with a trans person.
I gotta get
He
more
had a friendship with a trans person, and I can see that
more
mattered
steady
to
of
him.
a schedule and
At the
people that
same
want to do things.
time, just having a friend of a particular group doesn't mean that you don't engage in behavior that can harm that group. I can be a non-binary person my fucking self and hurt non-binary people.
Oh yeah, of course.
I can be a transphobe. That doesn't having a friend doesn't of that demographic
Yes, we
doesn't
know.
absolve
We
you
know
from doing
that.
potentially damaging behaviors. I really love his point on empathy, and I loved some of his critiques he had towards the LGBT community, specifically in the racism that we, as anyone in our society, can engage in. But I wish that he would have extended that understanding and that knowledge of how racist tropes can be, and understood how using transphobic tropes can be transphobic and damaging, and extended that empathy. So yes, I think he was
Yep.
transphobic in supporting TERFs very openly. I think rather than it being out of pure anger or hatred of trans people, which I think a lot of people misunderstand that as being transphobic, it was just you're saying damaging things, you're buying into damaging tropes, and you're spreading them on a very large platform. I think it's from a lack of education in this particular area, and a straw personing of trans people, acting as if trans people aren't very acutely aware of their biological differences, which we talk about in terms of sex rather than gender. So, unfortunate, but I liked some of his points in it, and I think there are a lot of interesting things to talk about in regards to the special.
Okay. I'm going to ask everyone to be as cordial as physically possible with this topic. I'm going to throw it to him to start. And good luck.
All right. So, I was going to say in my opening that I forgot to say, this stand-up reminded me a lot of Dave Rubin's stand-up, if you guys have ever seen it. It's very, very similar, as much as I hate to say it. It was just like storytelling with vague, funny points and like poor punchlines. I just don't understand why like you would make a like part of me wonders whether he did this on purpose to like martyr himself and like get himself like quote unquote canceled, because why else would you make a 1 hour special where 75% of it is like aimed at one community of marginalized people? I don't understand the thought process behind that.
I think
other than to open the criticism.
Comedy is one of the largest platforms where people bring a lot of these political talking points to light.
But dude, listen, it's like if I made
of what's going on here, like
Yeah,
you
but-
can paint it any way you want. Everybody brought up the I'm Team Turf thing. That was to set up the Woman of the Year into the Man of the Year and the feminists, and then talking about like everyone
Eminem being the BET award.
Wait. There was like so much that happened in there, and it's
So
like everyone just switched their fucking brains off at like he
So
said I'm Team Turf.
No,
And
bro,
you want me
Because they all misrepresented their arguments. That's the
There's like
problem. If
6
he
fucking
I'm asking everybody to stop. Okay. So immediately it exploded. So Nacho said something back in response to Heem, so I want Heem to respond. I'm gonna start writing down people's names.
My only point, Nacho, is that it's kind of lame to make an entire stand-up special with 75% plus of it aimed at one fucking topic. I find that so weird.
If every comedian decided to stop talking about LGBTQ, then every progressive would be.
Are we
talking about LGBTQ? Like, come on,
just understanding what I'm saying.
I have such a good point for this whole thing.
I'm not saying don't talk about LGBTQ stuff. I'm saying you're targeting one topic for the entire special. That's why he's doing it to spark the outrage
I have a huge epiphany item to talk about.
My special is.
I just want to talk about it. Damn it!
Part of the artistry of like what he's doing. It's literally like the reason why he's doing it. Nobody had an issue whenever he did his 846 special. And it was like super political, and it was super serious, and nobody was like,
and the SNL too.
Wait, okay, so hang on, one sec. Wait, one sec. You have to let me ask you. So what you're saying is that he cares about BLM, so he spoke on it, and he cares about being anti-trans, and he spoke on it.
He cares about trans and the LGBT community, and that's why he spoke on it. This is in my opinion, like this is his way of what I gather from it. This is his way of including them into the community, like. Yeah, come on into the community. Like this is like, are we supposed to just like?
Wait, but there's a little bit of a difference though, because
1 second, I want to make sure we go to Biggs first. I had him written down first.
Yeah.
I got your name down, Kevin.
So I just want to say, okay. So I think the biggest point on what Dave was trying to do with this special, and his biggest like presupposition, is he is jealous, and he said this, and envious because of the fact that the racial things cannot be hidden, but nobody knows if you're gay or straight or trans or not, for the most part, right? I think that's his biggest thing, is he is jealous at how well and how fast. No, I'm not. No, right. But I'm just trying to get his mindset based on what he said in that special specifically, and previously. Okay, yes. So I think that if we come from that retrospect, I think he did actually a decent job of bringing certain things to light that are ridiculous, as in the same way that like black people were forbidden from using like drinking fountains in bathrooms of white people. He was making fun of that with the same people with the transphobe people not wanting to do the bathrooms and stuff like that. So I think that if we come from that perspective, I think that we can kind of understand where he's coming from a little bit. And I don't think he's trying to be malicious. I think he's trying to understand how these issues are, and how he can help both the trans and LGBT community,
But if
along with
come
the
from that perspective.
African American
We can come
community.
If the
from that
entire
perspective.
wait one sec, Jangles, I'll pass it over to you. If the entire community or the majority of the community is offended by it, how is that helping?
That's the thing. It's not the entire community.
Not
There's
the entire.
plenty of people
Okay,
that
It's like
enjoy
99%.
that
All right, hold
stuff.
on.
Listen,
No,
do you
please
think
don't
it's
bring up that
50-50?
stupid point. Come
Do you
on.
think it's 50-50? 50% of people think it was appropriate. 50% of LGBTQ people think what he said was appropriate, and he's including.
No,
and
the
50%
I don't know if
bigger
that's
community
matters,
is
though,
what
right?
he's worried about. He could probably care less of what all the SJWs care about the reception of what he said.
He cares very much. That's his entire
That's the
like
whole
past
point
two
of the
specials.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
'cause
that's
it makes
that's
him
the
money.
entire past two of
He
his
could
specials.
put
All right.
jokes and get
So
billions of bucks out of it, dude.
yeah, I know, but his
It's
last
called
two
being a
specials have been
grifting
bad
comedian.
because
Come
that's
on.
always he's just been
You say
complaining
you
about the
study this art
SJWs.
and
So
you don't even get
you
that
had
basic
so Biggs had a
concept.
good point about Biggs had a decent point. Like there was something there. Like yeah, he was
Come on, give me a
drawing
little credit, man. Give me a little more credit than that.
I know you had a good point, and I picked up on that too, and Louis picked up on it as well. Like he was like doing a juxtaposition between like how like black civil rights and gay civil rights and queer civil rights and all that stuff, how they have like went at different speeds, different goals, different strategies, and all that fun stuff. And there is something there, but you're almost saying that like, wait a second, it doesn't matter if we come at it from that perspective. That doesn't really change anything. He's still using old tropes. His gay jokes, his I should say his I'll say queer jokes, because he went gay, lesbian, trans, all that stuff. They were bad jokes, not just because they were denigrating, but because they were old hat. They're relying on. All right. Here's a stereotype. All right, what is the stereotype of gay men that would be used by a hat comedian or feminine?
A super
Right, that's
buff
it-
black
and-
dude
and-
that
Glory
goes
hole,
like
glory
this.
hole, glory hole.
Now the glory hole. That was a good joke, but also a lot of the other jokes on the gay stuff was just a gay men or effeminate.
Especially
And-
like the super dude, big black guy that he didn't
Clifford?
mess with.
Wait, hold on. No, you mean the one he described as like having like a resting gay face and all that stuff? And
Yeah.
being super
He
effeminate.
said he
and,
went
like,
to a restaurant
and
and someone had their shirt
Yeah,
tied.
it's
to the
called
well,
wall.
yeah,
calling
like
you
that
out on
having
your
the shirt like
stack.
no,
Oh
it was-
yeah, yeah.
Trust me, I understood the joke. It was still
Yeah,
one of
but
the
you missed the
punchlines was
point,
like,
so
"Hey, gay men
continue.
are effeminate." The punchline, if I were to say like, "Hey, you're gonna make a joke about
The,
lesbians,"
the
what are you
point
gonna
of
go
that
with?
joke was
Oh, no,
about
no, no,
was
no, don't
about
tell me
was
what the
about the
joke was.
racial disparity between. That is what that joke was about. Before you trying to change the
and it
subject.
doesn't matter. He's still
That's
using
true.
those old tropes. Hold on, it doesn't matter. Fuck.
joke,
Okay.
dude.
All right,
It doesn't matter if we're being anyone's
It doesn't matter if you don't get the
fucking-
jokes. Okay,
Dude,
that's fine.
Dude, I did get the
wait,
joke. I
wait,
understand
wait.
jokes so
Let's
much
let
better than
J-
you.
You
let's let
did. You
Jingles-
literally weren't saying that.
Okay, stop. I said to stop. I'm gonna let
Alright.
Jingles finish, and then I want to throw it to Kevin and then Lumi.
First of all, yeah, I got the joke, but there was nothing that the
He was
the
totally
stereotype
not
bringing
getting
that
the
up, there was
joke.
nothing that added to the punchline of the joke. It was just in there because it was a lazy punchline. If I were to say like, "Hey, what's a punchline about lesbians that has been old for 30 years?" Oh, all lesbians are ugly. All right, and he
That
brought
wasn't
up as
even the
well, like, that
joke.
was a big part. That was the Family
That
Guy bit,
wasn't
like,
even
oh,
the
he met this
joke.
ugly lesbian and beat her up. Like that was a Family Guy joke. That's the one that made me want to like throw my TV out.
Also
Like
made an Adam's apple joke.
yeah, and what's the stereotype about trans people? Like, pick one.
They
Like,
look
these are
manly
very
or
old. Like
whatever,
these,
yeah.
and you don't try to say that. Oh, the point of the joke is this, or like, because those things don't add anything to the punchline of the joke. The whole bit about Team Turf, that was not the setup to a joke. All right, that was framing a joke, which is different than a setup. He was framing the joke, saying that he was on Team
Sure.
Turf.
There was
added
like
nothing
7
to his
punchlines
commentary.
following the Team Turf thing. What are you talking about?
Think about well, but think about even if
The
it
joke.
For
was
the love
setting
of
up.
God, I can.
It's
So
100%
the Team
set up
Turf, it
joke.
wasn't the setup to a joke.
Even
it was
if
the framing to a setup to a joke. All right.
Even
Comedy
if it
is
was the
complex
setup
in
of
that
the
way.
joke, it doesn't change the fact that you have a massive
Nacho.
comedian with huge amounts of
Holy
influence
shit.
saying
This is
he's
exactly what
supporting.
people
Be dishonest about it just because you feel like it. Like it was.
Dog,
It's like
no,
7
this is the dumb
punchlines
shit that I
into
was
this
talking
fucking
about. This is,
joke,
the
like-
this is what makes me like.
Well,
hate all
we can
this discourse.
psychoanalyze him
Yeah,
to
okay.
make him a transphobe, but
Wait.
it
Okay,
wasn't
we're
to
not gonna
understand
have,
the
wait,
jokes. Like,
Nacho. Okay, we're not gonna have two people talk over each other, so I'm gonna let you two chill out for a second, and we'll bring it back around. I have to throw to Kevin and then Lumi. They raised their hands, and I'll write your
Okay.
name down, Hunter.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So I wanted to make a point about the whole turf, I'm Team Turf thing from Dave Chappelle, because I think it is worth noting here that, he brings it up, and obviously it's kind of meant to be edgy. It's a little contrarian. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, well, I am that, whatever. He's not actually a turf, though, because at least a turf is a feminist. Radical feminist is in the name. He, like 90% of the time, 85, 90% of the time, he's referring to women. He's just referring to them as bitch. So like he's not even actually a feminist. So
Oh my
That's the
like,
joke.
hear the part
That's a
that-
joke, Kevin. You don't get the joke.
Wait, stop. Okay. I understand that we all disagree to this on varying levels, but we're also all human beings, right? We're all human beings. We all, love a good Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Hallelujah.
Amen.
So
Hallelujah.
let's.
I reject this with Dylan.
I know. Okay.
Ask
so
Mike
let's
Pence
all-
ask Mike Pence if he thinks I'm a human being, bro.
Okay. Okay. So let's calm down and let Kevin finish his point before we respond to it, because two people talking at the same time, we're not getting double the information. Kevin.
Yeah. I think for him, when he says, "Oh, it's this acronym," and trans people use acronyms to win debates or win arguments or whatever. Yeah, I guess it's a joke.
Yeah, they make up words to win arguments. That's what he said. Yep.
He doesn't actually know. Well, I think he said trans exclusionary radical feminist at one point, and he's like, "Oh, I'm Team TERF or whatever." But no actual radical feminist would refer to women as bitches all the time. So it is, at the end of the day, it just kind of meant to be.
Joke.
I feel like that's a little bit of a reduction.
Oh my
kind
Like,
of lame pill.
here's the-
No,
this is
but
the
it's
cancer
kinda
that I
lame
knew would
pill.
happen.
It's
No,
kind
but
of
like-
lame pilled, Nacho. It's kind of lame pilled, is what I'm saying. So
The thing is even if it is a joke, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, is that even if it is a joke, even if this is just framing for a joke or setup for a joke, it doesn't matter. When you have a massive figure saying they're Team TERF, making repeated jokes, denigrating trans people, and playing fodder for conservative narratives of trans people, a lot of them, then yes, we have a little bit of a problem here. Again, the solution, however, is not to cancel Dave Chappelle, but rather try and explain why it's not actually that funny. Because once you understand LGBT issues, a lot of his jokes weren't funny. Like, he didn't
Or
even
try and
understand the difference
explain
between
why he's actually on the same fucking side.
Is that
So
a
I know that. Well, hold on. Here's the thing: is
LGBTQ
a lot
community
of conservatives try to do
themselves
this.
is not
Hold
the
on, a lot of
fucking
conservatives
answer.
try to claim that this is actually like.
I'm not a
the
fucking conservative.
chest
You
to
can miss
just-
me with that
a lot
shit.
of
But
people
you know,
that don't
the
agree
majority of
here
this
are
audience
oftentimes.
is black conservatives.
Come on,
Okay,
man. Let me
Wait,
just.
stop. There's two people
the
talking
black
at the same
Democrat
time.
is
Wait,
a
Nacho,
socially conservative
Nacho,
voter.
Nacho,
Sorry.
you've been on my show many times. Don't do that.
I'll wrap it up. All I was gonna say
Wrap
is,
it up and I'm
I
gonna
think
go
if there's gonna be a media that has like transphobic jokes, it's really just needs to be done in a good way. It has to be well-rounded and good quality at the end of the day. You know what I mean, guys? You know what I'm talking about,
Just like
Biggs?
our comic
Just really wholesome and everything else. So I think that that's really what we have to get at the end at this. You know what I mean?
Lumi.
So while we do have that example of the Team TERF being one of many examples, again, you can go into the narratives, the way he describes trans people, again, playing into very transphobic narratives. I see, and I'm not ignoring that he did defend trans people on one area. And I think that's great. I think that's wholesome, if you will. But the rest of it, I don't think we can in good faith say, oh, well, this one point, that's just a joke, and, ignore all of the other transphobic points. And then again, it's just playing into the lack of education on trans people, where we're misquoting trans people. We're even misquoting TERFs when describing them in the exact way that TERFs tend to obfuscate, where it's like, oh, all I said was gender is
Do you
a
mean
fact.
obfuscate?
All I said is sex is real.
What'd
And
I
it's
miss, guys? What'd I
no,
miss?
You're
Let me know.
strawmanning trans people who aren't saying that their vaginas are exactly like a cis woman's vaginas. And that's the frustrating part. Additionally, I think it's frustrating because, and I liked Biggs, and I think Jangle's also engaged on this, the more intersectional topics and how it compares to some of the gains or lack of gains or frustrations of the movements for Black rights versus the movements for LGBT folks. I think there was a lot in there, and it's frustrating that the whole argument, we can't even get past the point that, okay, yeah, he said some damaging and unfortunate things that just reinforce all the old tropes all over again. And we can't even have that deeper conversation that I feel like he was really getting at, because it's, again, the silly argument.
I just want to ask you what you think about that one joke. I guess I'll open it up to everybody. First of all, I want to say about this whole cancel culture thing. Like, I think this cancel culture thing is overhyped a little bit. The consumers will decide. Dave Chappelle fans like him. If he puts out another special tomorrow, they will go and check out his special. If he has to go and put it on his own website, he's gonna be fine. Or he'll say something that's so offensive that people won't buy it. I don't really think it's too important to discuss whether or not he's going to be canceled, because in the
I
end,
find it ironic that they
I
are
don't
complaining
think,
about the
I
quality of
think
the
the
jokes
consumers
when then we
decide
were
on a lot
criticizing
of
the
this stuff,
same. But
whether the
Superman Hunter
behavior
made it
was whack.
same but sarcastically.
But I want to ask. So one joke he had was about he said LGBTQ people are marginalized, but then when they need to, they get white real quick. Do you guys remember that joke?
Yeah,
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
that's a
Okay.
good joke.
Okay,
That's an interesting joke.
It's interesting, but only until you consider that, like, well, what about all of the people of color who are also LGBTQ?
Didn't he say right after
brought that
that,
up.
though?
Yeah.
Except like a black LGBT
A black gay man.
Oh,
Wouldn't
okay.
have done that to him. Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
and it
but
was
those
a
kind of
recognition of white privilege. I thought that was based.
Yeah, that was an interesting joke. See, there
think it
are
just
jokes
went
you
over
can
your
make
head.
like this.
So
Yeah.
I agree. Like with Lumi and Jangles on
After
that.
Biggs is gonna be Turk.
But I think though that I do agree that there are some things that are edgy to be edgy, and that's how comedy is. But I think, especially when it comes to, like, I want to kind of like take this more look towards the cancel culture route. I think that if people want to not participate, I think that's perfectly fine. I think cancel culture, as far as like people not wanting to purchase things because they don't want to, or not want to view things because they don't agree with it and whatnot, I think it's perfectly fine. But what I have a problem with when it comes to cancel culture is this like brigading of something on social media from like a small minority of people that are just loud voices shouting down to like places like Netflix. So I'm
What
glad.
Are they supposed to do? What are they
Wait.
supposed
Just
to
let me
do?
finish.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that like that's what's happening now, and people are shouting to Netflix, say, "Hey, take this down." They had the one person that was working with the Netflix show said that they're no longer going to work with Netflix as a producer. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's good for them to stand on those morals because that's what they believe. But I think as a company like Netflix, I think to pander and to give in to like a small vocal minority is probably not in their best interest. I do think it's worth a conversation, which is like, you know, places like we were having this, but I don't think that these companies should fall to this small minority. And I think that that's where the issue is when companies do, you know, you can get like people that have bots and like things like that on Twitter and like massively like brigade. And I think that's bad. Both sides do it. And I disagree with it on both sides. I don't agree when conservatives do it either. So I don't think that that's what companies should do. I think somebody should put out things what they believe in and stick behind their people. So I think Netflix should stick behind Dave.
I look forward to when you become the CEO of Netflix, I guess, and don't give in to this kind of pressure. I think
they're gonna
these
stick
are the
with whatever-
calculations.
Let Turk talk.
These are the calculations that people are making, right? Like
Sure.
in Netflix's board, whether or not this is a beneficial thing for them.
It's like one of the top 10 viewed things right now. Do you really think they're going to take it down? Like, I just don't think that makes sense, right? It's
No,
a
but I
vocal
mean,
minority.
You're saying that you have a problem with people like going on Twitter and like starting a campaign to raise.
I'm fine with that. I don't like the companies kowtowing to the vocal minority. That's what I was saying. Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Fair enough.
Next, we got to throw it over to Turk.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring back up the feminism thing because y'all keep claiming that Dave Chappelle is not a feminist because he continues to refer to
I'm based all the
females
time.
as the
Fucking
B, right?
lobotomy. Come on now. It's looter. Snake face.
About the jokes and how he's a master of his craft because he sticks it to lefties because he actually goes and uses the Wikipedia Webster's Dictionary definition for feminist. And this is why we get to love dunking on lefties because if you use that as an argument, it's funny. And
I try to roll out whatever I can, man. It's just hard when you got these like
the joke. It
8 people panels with Dylan as a
because yes, if you
semi-biased moderator, I guess he does pretty good though. I like Dylan.
And
how
many hating like
that's such a superficial.
I mean,
if you're terrified that his audience is like this massive conservative base and that's who he's talking to, he just gave them like the definition of a feminist, and he told them this reeling story about like how he was attached to this trans person, and the biggest part of that whole special was when he talks about like the moment that he had with Daphne, where like at the end of it, he bonded like with her, and then like all of this shit happens, and he goes through this whole thing with her, and then she's like, I don't need you to understand. I don't need you to understand or know what the fuck I'm talking about. I just need you to understand that I'm
we're
having
gonna talk about that
a
a
human.
lot. We're gonna talk about Daphne's
Yeah,
use of that
obviously
a
we're
lot.
gonna talk about it. Yeah, go
I know,
ahead.
but so
Right.
all right, I'm gonna lay out some humor theory.
No,
I'm gonna lay
because
out some humor
you're
theory
gonna
first.
cut me off because that's the best part of the fucking special, man. Like,
No, like
Wait,
okay.
wait,
on.
wait, Nacho, were you getting cut off?
He can go ahead. I'll bring it back up in a minute.
No, Nacho,
All right,
no.
so I'm gonna lay out some humor theory for you, okay? Benign violation theory. This is like the most widely accepted theory of like what makes something funny. Benign violation theory. Benign violation theory states that in order for something to be funny, you have to violate a norm. So you have to have
2
be
points
aware
after
of, like,
2
social
points. Hell
norms.
yeah.
You have to violate those in some way. And
You
that
make no
violation
joke
has to be
about a group I like. Ha ha ha.
going too far. It has to be considered.
Look, this is why Dave's a comedian and you're not. All right, well, it's not
So,
master
because
theory.
Yes.
and this is what makes me want to fucking Roblox myself. If you're not interested in talking about like why jokes are funny, the construction of jokes, if you're not interested in talking about all that stuff, just shut the fuck up, okay? We're trying. I refuse to believe.
Seriously.
Hold on.
Yeah, we're on a panel to talk about this.
No,
man.
no, but you don't want to talk about it. You want to not.
And we're not talking about it. We're not
you
talking about
want to
the
very.
No, we're literally talking about it right now.
You want to very. No, all three of you. So no, hold on.
I want to break down like what I think the meaning of these jokes are.
Wait, Jesus Christ. Okay.
No, Nacho Biggs.
Wait, you're stop. Jangles.
Jangles, buddy.
Okay, so I can't hear anything that's going on because everybody's yelling over each other.
I love your sweet voice, Dylan.
And so we're gonna move on from both Jangles and Nacho because since I couldn't hear anything and neither of you could do it rulely in an ordered fashion, I'm just gonna move on to Turk.
I wanted to hear more about humor theory. This is such a riveting topic for a Friday night at 9 o'clock. Come on, continue to educate me, dude.
Well, Turk is super condescending and passive aggressive this whole time as always. But honestly and sincerely here, I actually am interested in hearing about the humor theory because it sounds like Jangles understands this, and it sounds like the other guy just wants to pivot off of it because he's mad that he can't argue against it. So,
well, you got to ad hom always.
I don't know why.
Right? Yeah, accuse me of ad hom. This is. Yeah, okay.
It's okay.
I don't know why people don't. All right, I know why people don't like talking about like joke construction. All right, I think it's interesting as all fuck. Like I said, stand up is my favorite art form. I want to talk about its ins and outs, and I know why people don't like that because if you explain a joke, it makes it not funny anymore. Like explaining a joke as part of benign violation theory, you've taken away the violation. You've deconstructed it, and you know how it works. And like I understand why people don't like doing that, but it's also super interesting and it's important when we're talking about humor. Like if you're going to make an argument like that's the joke, you're expressing that there's some form of like humor construction, joke construction.
Really a fringe minority. However, if you were to make a joke about black people want equal rights in the countries, there would be a lot more people who would have been okay with it too.
Jokes convey information. They make an argument of sorts. All right, they're trying to convince the argument to left. You're setting up social norms, expectations. You're trying to make the audience think it's okay. You're trying to you're doing all this stuff that is setting up information that you're conveying to the audience, and that information does matter. It does have a message. Comedy can have a message. The best comedians of all time had incredible messages behind their comedy, on top of being incredibly funny. That's why, and that takes a lot of skill. But when someone says like it's just a joke, fuck off. Jokes convey information. That's what makes them funny. That's what makes them really funny. They convey social information, violations, re-examinations, deconstructions of all sorts of like things that are in our society. That's what makes them funny. And you're
right.
Like,
so
and
that's what makes
nothing.
all of this shit like so fucking like hypocritical. Like it's fine to like super like psychoanalyze every single fucking like line.
Yeah, it's fine.
Bro,
listen, hang on.
How is that hypocritical?
Wait, rim shot.
Oh my god.
So
wait, Turk, were you trying to say something?
No, I'm done with the meme. Jangles proved my point that continuing to go on this little diatribe was pretty pointless.
Can I respond to Turk really quickly, please? Because a second ago
he can't respond to me, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, just really quick, wanted to address something earlier. Earlier, he accused me of ad hominem. So just to be clear, an ad hominem
that was me.
Would be if I Who was this?
That was Biggs that said that.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Oh,
dude.
so I wanted to
Sorry.
respond to Biggs on this then. So earlier I was accused of ad homing. An ad hom would be if I didn't make an argument and then instead just insulted. So if I was like, "You're stupid," and that's it, that would be an ad hom attack. But rather, I was just calling out his condescending behavior. So I just wanted to clarify that really quick. That is actually factually not an ad hom. But nice try.
So
anyway,
so
Biggs.
calling
Please,
somebody.
I'm happy to
So
move
so
on
what
to
did
the
you
next
say? What did you just say there? You said you said you were misconstruing Nacho's argument with what he wasn't saying. So maybe it was just a straw man instead. Would you prefer that fallacy?
I
mean, I don't know what you were trying to get at here.
Let's go.
No. I accused someone of being. I said that someone
was being condescending, which you were trying to misconstrue his arguments, right?
Turk was being condescending.
You said it's a Nacho. You don't even know who you're talking about.
Okay, Heemed.
Okay, I wanted to ask, like, do you guys think that there's like no science to stand-up comedy, Nacho?
Dude, I mean, there's a degree, yes. Like we.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay, stop right there. Stop right there.
Yes.
Stop. Okay, so then you understand that like why 99.9% of comedians the first time they try it they bomb because it's a fucking science to it. The timing,
it's a formulation.
And
yes.
you can understand also that that's why like 99% of people who take fucking comedy classes are fucking shit comedians.
Okay, but I'm saying that there's a science. Yeah. So when Jangles is bringing,
so
up
it's like this
science,
only takes it so far. Like that's all I'm trying to point
structure,
out.
When he's bringing up the structure and you're laughing it off, you're acting as though there's nothing.
I'm laughing because when I was willing to like analyze this and go deeper into like why I thought like what I think the jokes meant or like how I was interpreting the jokes, like it's like no, we're not allowed to do that. But if he wants to sit here and teach me fucking like comedy 101 theory class, like then we can do this.
Maybe
Now
if you listen to him,
this.
he was maybe building up to a bigger point about the specifics of the joke.
So far, your analysis has been that's the joke. It's just a joke. That's what your analysis amounts to.
So I had said
So far,
that there was
this
a
guy sounds
deeper
like he has
meaning
a
to a lot
nacho
of
for a brain.
So there was a deeper meaning to these.
No,
to
that's
these
an ad
jokes.
hom.
Yes,
All
it
of
is.
these-
That's an ad hom right there.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's worth it to say.
I'm saying, please. This has descended into a place where I there's nothing being gained out of this anymore. Okay, so I'm gonna have Nacho speak, and no one else is gonna talk, and this is how we're doing the rest of this conversation. Nacho.
Okay, so even though like okay, for me, I've gone
This
through a
has
pretty
been
good
really
fucking
good
journey, right?
tonight, guys.
All
I'm
right,
so glad
the
you're here for this.
846
It's
was
been
another
super fun.
Chappelle special that had me, Hunter. I had my own little like arc. I just ended up right center right instead of like all the way back on the left. Okay, so I was in that space. I was ready to like I was fucking looking down the edge of the fucking rabbit hole. All right, so I was hanging out some pretty like shady characters, watching a lot of like weird like not alt-right, but I was watching a lot of fucking like Shapiro every day, doing the whole fucking like diatribe of like only listening to into my echo chamber of one person. And the 846 was one of a few things that kind of like kicked me away from that and towards a much more like moderate like center position.
Yep.
And the reason
Hunter
was
always
because
being crucified because he is fucking trash. He is like low tier trash.
I was looking at these headlines like, oh well, this is a bunch of bullshit. And then when Dave Chappelle like really hammered it home, like the way he presented it, I couldn't have got anywhere else. Okay. And yeah, he's not perfect. All right. And no disrespect. Let me make the comparison. Let me make the fucking comparison, okay? Because I'm not saying that, but it pushed me in a direction that would make me go look into this shit for myself, right? And so even though I have a much better understanding of the trans community because of my involvement, because of talking to people, because of coming onto like Dylan's panel, being in this Twitch politics space and talking to a lot of trans people, like this really is like a hammer, like a nail in the coffin for me to some degree, because when he says that one little snippet, like we could cross it in 4 hours. That like I don't need you to understand like or like know what the fuck I'm talking about. I just need you to recognize that I'm having a human experience. Like that really was like a pretty fucking like jarring moment. And a lot of basically the whole special starts after
people
like
speak out against this so others can
38
understand why
in.
the things being
And
said are so offensive.
That's like some George Carlin type shit.
I
Like,
mean,
that's what
honestly, I
got
do
from
think
that.
Dave
Like, he's
Chappelle's just
bringing
trying
up a lot
to
of
juxtapose
things, like a
the
lot of
LGBT,
issues, surrounding the LGBT
civil rights
community,
movement versus
and
the
a lot of
black civil
issues
rights
that
movement. He's just
comedians are
jealous.
facing. Not
just
that
basically
they
the
want to
gist
just
of
run
it.
out here. Like if you're just being a fucking moron and you're just like,
Yeah, I don't care if it's offensive either.
like trans people are bad, they're all making my kids gay. Like that's dumb shit. Okay, that's not funny. Like I get that, but if you're able to make these jokes and you're able to bring this, like, look at what we're all talking about this right now thanks to Dave Chappelle. We're all talking about LGBT community like related issues thanks to Dave Chappelle. So like I mean, I don't know
Dave
how
Chappelle's
much.
talking about it thanks to us
Wait,
also,
wait,
right?
Wait,
wait.
I don't
Okay,
think so.
I said we were doing this in a certain way.
Oh,
Didn't
sorry.
say. Okay. Next is gonna be Jangles, Lumi, then we're wrapping it up.
Let Lumi go first.
Lumi,
We're ending on me. Nope.
Oh, okay, cool.
Jangles.
Space.
All
right,
yeah.
so- I love I actually agree with a lot of what Nacho just said. Hey, there were some moving parts in that. Comedians can be incredible messengers. All right, there's an intimacy associated with stand-up comedy that you don't see in other forms of comedy. That's why I fucking love it. All right, just one person on a stage making people laugh, it. I think that's incredible. I think that one person on a stage making jokes is standing alongside and being just as popular as like highly produced movies and specials. That's the shit that I love talking about. But notice, like every time we try to bring up, like if you talk about like why a special is moving, what point was being made here in a positive light, it's incredible. But all of a sudden, that analysis just goes through the fucking floor when you start criticizing them. Then it's just a joke, or then you didn't get the joke. What if I got the joke and didn't think it was funny? What if I want to examine some of like the biases and stereotypes and assumptions that were made as part of the setup to that joke that I question? What if I don't buy into those biases, those stereotypes, and that's why I didn't find the punchline funny?
Sounds like he's just trying to
subvert the things that was
rationalize why he didn't get the jokes. To me,
right, I want to talk about this shit. It's really fucking interesting to me. But time and time again, it's like, oh, that's what we want to do on a Friday night. Motherfucker, do you know the topics we talk about on the HippyDippy on Friday night? They're going to be boring to 99% of people, and we're all here anyway on Friday night talking about it, all right? I want to examine these things, but we can't just be, but every time we try to do it, it just shut down. Like, oh, it's just a joke. He's just a comedian. He's supposed to push boundaries. Well, fuck it. He's got to be good at it then. We can analyze these things a little bit further, and we're just not doing it. I wonder, like, we're running out of time. I wanted to talk about, I thought it was really fucking gross how he used Daphne. All right, this, like, it was kind of gross. It was his trans friend that gave him all of, like, the passes. The worst part of the special, the most gross thing, is when he said Daphne would have loved that joke. That shit was gross because she's not here to let us know whether or not she would have found
oh
that
my
funny.
gosh,
That's the grossest part of that special, and it was a transparent attempt to like to hold up a shield for accusations of transphobia, and that shit was real fucking gross.
That is gross. Yeah.
Okay, next is going to be Lumi, and then we'll do ending statements.
Alrighty. I understand that some of those moments were powerful emotionally, where he's trying to relate with the trans community, and I encourage him to do that. I'm glad he had a trans friend. But you can't just, again, as Jangles was saying, shield yourself by one person you know in that community. I want to acknowledge his growth. I think that's incredible, and I'm always glad to see people growing. My concern is
you're
that
educating people,
we
and hopefully
see someone growing
so
and we
empathy.
see
Yes, I agree
someone
with that.
extending that empathy, but
You
when they
are
do
defining things I already know.
that
Being
continue
offensive
to
means
hurt that
insulting people. Yeah, I
community,
mean it's
that
definitely
continue
true.
to play into those same stereotypes on such a large platform with such a lack of
Achievement, the campaign is
education
in fact
in
about
terms of
punishment.
just the difference on sex and gender and the intentional, well, I'm not even
punishment? I don't
sure it
think
was
anybody's being
intentional. I would
punished.
argue that
I
it
don't know
was
what you mean by punished.
intentional on
Unless I missed
many
something.
turfs points, but not necessarily his, that continued, I'm just saying gender is a fact. It's still playing into transphobic narratives, whether he has anger and hatred towards trans people or not. And I don't
It's
believe that
just
he does.
what
But
he
I'm tired of having
believes.
to
He
make that
believes
argument
that
I'm not
women have
attacking him
children
as
and
a
things like that.
person,
That's what
or
he's
I don't
talking
think
about.
that he's insincere in those points. But
Oh,
I don't
deplatforming
think
Shell.
that
Okay, yeah, Chappelle. Yeah. Like,
is where the
punitive punishment for what he
conversation
said. Yeah, it's
stops for
ridiculous.
society.
I don't think anybody here
And I
actually
hope to
advocated
see
for it to
him
be removed, to
continue
be
on
honest
this
with you.
journey. I think he will, and I'm excited for that.
I don't think anybody's going to remove Chappelle.
Okay, now we're going to do ending statements.
I just don't think it's going to happen.
Starting with the top left with American Nacho.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I think that the reason why progressives don't really understand a lot of this, or it rubs them the wrong way, is because they were already caring about these issues. Like, not to say that I wasn't, but it's like
A lot of people
I
talking
have
about
a
it
different
aren't
like
just
background,
trying
so
to
lead
cancel.
my
Yeah, I don't
path
think
to
any,
like
I don't think
where I'm
any,
at
I don't think
now,
there's any real chance of him getting
and getting
canceled.
involved like trans community and being like supportive of the LGBT community and stuff. It's a lot different. So I can relate to that. Like I can see the audience that he's trying to target. And to me, I think it's really great that he's doing that because I'm sure there's a lot of like moderate social conservatives who probably are even Democrats. Like
Yeah, pretty sure
they're voting Democrat their whole life, but they're socially conservative and they have these feelings and they don't really talk about it because of the pushback they're going to receive. And then he's able to bring this progressive message to them and bring this relatable storytelling to them in a way that really hammers it home. Because if you really watch the last 45 minutes or the last 30 minutes of that, like it's not really that funny.
Oh yeah,
He's
you can
interjecting
definitely have
comedy to
dark humor
break
without
the
insulting.
seriousness
I
of
think
the
there's
story
definitely
that he's
dark
telling.
humor that's not
But the
actually
story that he's
insulting
telling
any direct
has
people.
an impact. And I think it's something that does need to be talked about. I think the cancel culture is pretty serious, and I think the fact that the LGBT community like cannibalizing one of their own, and I'm not going to put all that on them because even Dave Chappelle didn't put that on. I think he was nuanced when he said it in the special. He was like, I don't know what else is going on in her life, but I'm sure that trans Twitter dragging her through the mud didn't help. And he's literally openly grieving on stage, and I don't think it's something that he wanted to do at the end of the day. Like I don't think he wanted to like break up with like telling trans jokes. Like I think he wants to be involved, but at the end of the day when he has to make a decision between like am I going to continue to be like I'm in support of progressive social issues like black rights, but the trans community wants to make me choose between LGBTQ or black rights, then fuck it, I'm going to black rights. Like and that's part of what I think like some of the messaging was, and it's subtle, but it's like I hate it because I think that Dave Chappelle could do it
You should
better than
definitely watch
anybody.
it
I
if you
think
have
that
a
he has
chance.
that like George Carlin-esque kind of like style to him, and I think it's really good for someone like him to be making jokes and to be trying to make jokes about like social issues like this. And if we're silencing him every time we turn around and dragging him through the mud, then he's just going to stop doing what he's doing, and then it's going to get put on the back burner. So I don't know. That's my opinion.
Okay, next is going to be Biggs.
Yeah, so like I said in the beginning, I don't think that Dave Chappelle has any real malice towards the LGBT community at all. I think he's more envious of that community, to be honest, based on like a lot of his specials. I went back and I watched The Closer like 3 times, and I watched a couple of his other Netflix specials and watched some of his older specials. I will agree that this wasn't his best. My personal favorite, personally, is Killing Him Softly. It was one of his first, I think it was his first HBO special he had back in 2000, 2001. That was probably his best work for me personally. But I do think he's trying to bridge the gap between different communities and having different pushes towards equal liberties and equal rights. And while I know a lot of people don't agree with it, I do think he has some things that are in bad taste. But I think overall, he does do a good job kind of towing the line. As far as like making fun of like the conservatives with the bathroom joke bill thing, and I also do think he, like Nacho said, was generally impacted by the death of his friend Daphne. And I know you might think that it was in poor taste to involve that into the special. I mean, that can be debatable. I may agree with you on that if we had a conversation specifically about that. But I do think that as far as cancel culture goes, I don't think Netflix is going to remove this. I think the more voices we have is better. The whole fact that we're even having this conversation shows like that people care about these issues, especially when it comes to civil rights, both in the African American community and minority community, as well as the LGBT community. And I just want people to live as free as possible. And I think that that's what we should strive for. And things like this, like cancel culture, I don't like in general. I think the best way to combat bad speech is better and more speech. So I want to leave it at that. But thank you all. I do think this was a good special. And I do think that hopefully he'll come back with better material that's not targeting these communities specifically. Is my hope in the future.
Dr. Heimdall?
Yeah, so it was an interesting topic again, and good job, Dylan. Again, as someone who, I missed the Dave Chappelle show days when I was younger. I was an immigrant, ESL, the whole thing. And the only real exposure that I got to Dave Chappelle was in his comeback with his Netflix special. So I was able to have like an unbiased opinion on it. And I just don't think he's that funny. I'm sorry to tell you guys. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. He's just not that funny. His jokes are not that layered or deep. I like jokes that are like have society, I don't know, like societal critique rather than just like the most basic thing that anybody could come up with. Like Jangles was saying, like, what do you think about when you think about a gay guy? You think about someone who's effeminate. What do you think about when you think about? He goes to like the very first thing, and I just think that's lame. I think that edgy jokes can be funny. It just depends on how they're done. They're risky, obviously,
Mrs.
as we can
Nacho.
see. For example, remember when Louis C.K. made that joke that people recorded on their phone about the Parkland shooting? It was
Yeah, I don't think
very edgy,
offensive
and it was
comedy is
not
definitely dark humor. I think
prepared at
dark humor is
all.
more just like
And it wasn't well executed, and he got a lot of shit for
morbid
that. And
and
this is the
like
same thing here. The joke was not well. The
more
jokes were not well
risque,
executed.
maybe. Again, not necessarily
If I
like
bought tickets to that
offensive.
show, I would have been upset that I went to go watch a stand-up comedy night and I ended up seeing an hour-long lecture-esque on trans issues that was not rooted in academia whatsoever. That this person is still conflating gender and sex.
Oh my gosh, bring it back to
And
gender and sex.
yeah, like, should Netflix remove it? Probably not. They're
Come
not
on, get on the
gonna.
Discord,
I don't
everybody.
think. Is he
Get on
canceled?
the Discord.
No, because people will still support his comedy because they think he's the GOAT. Yeah, it just seemed to me a little bit weird that he would make an entire special focused on just one topic. I don't think I've ever really seen it to that extent before. He's almost inviting it on. It was literally Dave Rubin tier comedy. If you've never seen Dave Rubin's comedy, just Google Dave Rubin comedy. He does the exact same thing. Id poll, roll calls. Do we got any trans people in the house? Do we got any gay people in the house? Okay, cool. Okay. And it was cringe. It was cringe. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, next is gonna be Hunter Avalon.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you know, like I said at the beginning, I think that the moderate, sort of non political crowd might see that and find it funny or think that what he's saying is true. But ultimately, the reason they're finding that funny is because they don't understand the misappropriation of these issues. I mean, the guy was saying he's team turf, then he's conflating sex and gender. He's going to all these like cheap jokes based on the easiest stereotypes imaginable. At the end of the day, I'm not really that interested in critiquing his stand-up comedy act. I saw some of it and I thought there were a couple jokes that were funny that it had me laughing a few times, but it doesn't change the fact that when you have a massive figure spreading wrong information and giving fodder to transphobic arguments, it just does harm at the end of the day. And I know people are saying, well, he was trying to say, well, he's a little envious of the black community, but like, equality is not a race, or it shouldn't be, and equality is also not a zero-sum game. So just if like trans people are gaining rights does not mean that Dave Chappelle is losing his. So I just think that that dichotomy there to begin with is a little bit silly. I don't think that canceling him is the right move. I think that some of the Netflix people working there, I think, actually acted pretty inappropriately. One of them like barged into a meeting that they were like not authorized to be. It was really like out of line. So there was definitely like some shit there, but at the end of the day, no, he shouldn't be canceled. Rather, we should just look at why he believes this to begin with and why so many people find it funny and try to nip it at the root rather than just knock out one guy who would then he was just saying what someone else is going to say tomorrow.
Okay, now we're going to throw it over to Jangles.
So, comedy is hard. One of the like the first rule that you learn when you're doing stand-up comedy is that you as the comedian don't decide if a joke is funny. That's the heart of stand-up. You don't decide if a joke is funny. The audience does. And that's why it's useful to understand, like, from the audience's perspective, like why something might be perceived as funny. Because sometimes the reason you intended a joke to be funny is not the reason people found it. Not just like, and I'm not just talking about like, oh, the audience decides a joke's funny, so if people are offended, that means it's not funny. I'm saying that, like, for example, there are people in the chat who think the joke is funnier because it offended trans people. Like they are finding humor that was not intended by the joke teller because they are the person that decides whether or not a joke is funny and why that joke is funny to them. So that's why it's useful to look at it, and why it's useful to analyze comedy, not just for what the joke teller's intent was, but what the messaging of that comedy is going to be in terms of like why people might find it humorous. If a transphobe thinks your joke is funny because it shits on trans people, it doesn't matter if that's your intention or not. That is a legitimate lens to view why someone found that comedy humorous and what it can do. And what the hard part when talking about comedy, especially like offensive comedy, is that like the best is the reason to use offensive comedy in the first place. If you're a bigot, one of the ways that you can get away with bigotry is by making your the messaging the exact same messaging that you get in trouble for with a serious
Yeah, I
statement.
don't know what the
Just
fuck
turn
these
into
guys.
a
This
joke
guy
that's
said
being
like a
used
bunch of
against
shit, but
There's
basically
research
said
to
nothing
show
the
that,
whole
like,
time.
people who make these
He literally said like
sexist,
nothing.
homophobic,
Jangles, you
racist
just fucking
jokes are
said
expressing the exact same
nothing.
sentiments that reinforce stereotypes, that
It's
do
fine.
everything that a serious statement would. But it's a lot harder to push back on that because in a social context, if someone is being perceived as a joke, they have a lot more leeway. And that's not a bad thing. That's one of the best things about humor. It opens you up to more possibilities to push social boundaries, to engage in transgressive acts.
Welcome
that can,
everybody.
make
Thank
people
you guys for
reasonable
hanging
themselves.
out
It's the
tonight, by
best
the
thing about
way.
comedy, but it's also the worst thing in this aspect.
You guys can find me on Twitch,
I hope it's
obviously.
clear. I love stand-up comedy. I
YouTube
love comedy.
at
I love analyzing jokes.
Biggs8500
That
and
shit's
on
super, super
Twitter
interesting.
at
But
Biggs8500. So
please stop making
give me a
this shit about
follow.
offense. Like we can
Shoot me a message. I
like
love talking to people
comedy is
on
important.
Twitter and
It can push
on
back.
Twitch,
It can
and
change people's minds.
Liquid
It can
Sunshine's linked to
move people to
Discord,
change their
so
opinions
hop on
legitimately
the
about things.
Discord
And I
and
think it
chit
does
chat with
the
us.
entire art form a
I stream
disrespect when you
occasionally,
just
not
pretend
too
like, oh, he's
often,
just
but
joking, therefore it
I'm
has
hoping to
no
get more, a little more often, a little more regular. But I like getting on panels when I can.
Next is going to be Lumi, and I will be right back.
Nacho, I hear what you are saying in the audience, that
I
he
hear
may
you.
be reaching,
I
and I have
hear you,
appreciation
Nacho.
for that. I
I
think that
hear
I come
you.
from a perspective where I'm dealing with trans issues and I'm trying to educate on trans issues regularly. And so it gets frustrating that it's, in a sense, conflating a lot of issues, but I try to acknowledge, and when I say conflating, it's like the lack of education on sex and gender and diving back into that and really reinforcing the straw man that I get thrown at me in my community often. It's very
I'm
frustrating.
in open discussion,
At the
but
same
can
note,
go
I do acknowledge the growth, and
move
I
down.
am very happy to see it. And I was excited to see the conversation with Biggs and again Jangles on that more intersectional, and I think Hunter as well, on that more intersectional issue of this isn't a zero-sum game. There is really interesting conversation to be had here, and this is where I think Dave could grow so much in seeing those connections between the struggles that Black people are facing in the United States and the trans and the LGBT community are facing. We deal with those differently, and we do have different issues, but there are a lot of parallels in the way that we are repeatedly characterized in the same ways that dismiss us. And unfortunately, he played into that.
Yeah, but part of
I'm
like the
sorry,
It's
am
an
I saying
end.
my
Oh,
ending
okay.
Yeah,
I
this
don't
is
statement?
know
an
why.
ending.
I thought this was like a never mind.
No,
Oh,
it's
that's
ending
okay.
statement.
I got confused. I thought everybody went. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Oh shoot. I think there's a lot of directions to go in terms of intersectionality. I'll actually be having a panel that is focused on specifically LGBT and Black folks on this particular issue, the Dave Chappelle issue, with that intersectionality and with some of the points he was making, the jealousy comment. I did appreciate some of his honesty and some of the raw emotion there. And I will say, I think there's a boldness there. I just find it disappointing that we're seeing the same narrative play out, and there's so many trans people trying to educate on it, and
Yeah,
other
feel
people
free
as
to
well.
get into
So
whatever
there's a little
conversation
bit
that
of
you
my
want. Like,
frustration, and
if
I
everybody wants to
see
be in
my
the same
community,
conversation,
and
that's fine. If you guys
I
want to have
being
private
exhausted
conversations, no problem.
that it seems we can't get that education out without these narratives being continuously reinforced. But I understand that this is an ongoing conversation that's just popping up into the public and is newer. So we will try our best to be patient.
Next is going to be Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So
I'm timing
just
Kevin.
Kind of summarize my points here on
He didn't say
this,
shit on this
Dave
conversation,
Chappelle.
Bailey.
I didn't think that this particular special of his was all that funny. I think that yes, it's very clear that some of the jokes they had in there are, by definition, transphobic. Now, You can do edgy
My
jokes. You
definition.
can do, you can push the line, that kind of stuff. As far as should Netflix remove it? I mean, that really is up to Netflix at this point. I do think though that that this kind of obsession over cancel culture generally does seem to be kind of a get out of jail free
How's
card.
everybody doing tonight? It's 10:30 Eastern.
I'm being canceled. It's
Glad
like,
you guys
well,
are staying
no,
up
he's not
late with
really
me
being
tonight. I
canceled.
appreciate it.
Netflix is standing by him.
We
here,
got
and
one
I mean,
more
that's their
topic
right
tonight. We're
to
going
do.
to talk
They're a
about the
private company.
Abbott
They do what they
mandates
want.
on the
And,
ban on mandates. So
viewers
I think
can
that's
also
going to be a
decide
good
not to
political
watch it,
conversation. So we'll see.
And they can decide whether to renew their membership or not to Netflix. Also, of course, as I said, and as was noted by the panel, there were a couple moments in there when
Anybody have any fun
he
plans
did,
this weekend?
Stand against transphobic legislation.
I'm going on a date night with my wife tomorrow night.
Interesting how when we
And then I'm going to be on
as,
Hans's
Jingles
panel.
tried to do, get into some of the specifics of the craft of how jokes are actually constructed and the effect that they have in culture. The more conservative people on the panel it didn't really like that too much, and I found that kind of interesting because you can talk about film analysis, you can talk about literature analysis. These are generally more, I guess, traditionally regarded as serious fields, offering academic precision and commentary on society and culture. But you're going to talk about jokes, and there are people who just say, it's just a movie, bro. But I think in general, films are taken to be, you're going to critique that makes sense, whereas you're going to critique a joke. Except jokes also
he didn't say anything though about the jokes. He literally
through which
fucking said a bunch of nothing. He said nothing.
And so if you've
You
got
said
an
nothing.
issue with the
Jangles,
cultural
you
effect
literally
of a
said
joke,
nothing at all.
I think by all means they
Fucking
should be open
ridiculous.
to criticism and critique. I mean, that's really what a free society is about. And it does make sense though that if you're somebody that's
My
out
God,
there
he's
to
already at
essentially
2
defend this sort of message,
minutes
then
and
you might
30
wanna,
seconds. Okay,
move away from
I'm
that.
so
do
close
think,
to this
though, just
over
to
under.
kinda wrap
This is
up,
a really good
that,
over under. Let's see if he
Chappelle
can.
is
Can he
gonna be
finish in 20
fine.
seconds?
He'll be back, and he's got a lot of money. Sure, he turned down the $50 million back in the day, but he's a millionaire. He'll be fine. Getting canceled, it's like, okay, but if you get canceled like J.K. Rowling, that means you become a billionaire, basically. So okay, whatever. It's
Oh my God, my over under is so good.
At this point to
He's
talk
almost
about
at
this
3
as a form
minutes.
of cancellation when Netflix is ultimately.
Oh, it's over 3 minutes. He did it.
So yes, some of the jokes were transphobic. I didn't really
Oh
find it
my
that
God.
funny, but at the end of the day, the reaction.
This
of
is
the
fucking
audience over the
ridiculous.
top
Oh my
laughter
God,
at
he's
them,
going longer.
I think that's a bit more troubling than
My
than
God,
Dave Chappelle
this guy is
himself.
fucking.
So thank you.
I'm gonna wrap this up with dessert
316.
before moving on to the final topic.
Yeah, so I thought the special was funny. You could call me lowbrow, unsophisticated, dumb conservative. I have been the butt of many of Dave Chappelle's jokes. A lot of other groups of people have had to be unfortunately targeted by Dave Chappelle, especially in this particular special. Made at least 2 really bad jokes towards Jewish people, made plenty against white people as well as white females. Also made some pretty bad jokes towards people of color as well, with some really stark language. I think that should be restricted too, right? That's some naughty words. But I think a lot of the people on
It's
the
okay
panel
because he's
miss the
black though, so it's
larger
fine.
story of what he's actually trying to do. Sure, he might not be getting the educated parts of it correct, between gender and sex. And sure, you think some of his jokes didn't land, but you know what? Sometimes you guys aren't exactly always right, and sometimes we're not always
Super
right. I think
Power
at the end of the
Broadcasting is
day, the
definitely not a
entire goal of the
conservative. He's
special
awful.
was to show that people who disagree and have differing opinions can actually come together and have conversations and can become a community. And unfortunately, Twitter is not a real place, to quote Chappelle himself. And when people start to defend people in the public sphere, that's when a lot of people on the progressive side of things start to attack people, and that has some really negative consequences. So I really strongly recommend people to take a step back and inflect on how they engage with people, as well as actually like trying to have conversations with people instead of just thinking people are always wrong and you're always right, because that's not always true.
Okay, we're going to move on to the final topic of the night. It is the vaccine mandate ban in Texas. So, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, has, through executive order, put in place a vaccine mandate ban. He has also said that he will rescind his executive order once the state legislature votes into place a vaccine mandate ban. What this means is that private businesses in the state of Texas cannot enforce vaccine mandates. That is what the executive order does. So the question is, do you agree or disagree with Texas Governor Greg Abbott's executive order? I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner with American Nacho.
Muted.
Whoops. Pro
Brilliant.
streamer. I don't really like Greg Abbott at all. Although I think the left with the mandates are making it really easy for idiots to gain traction. Personally, I don't really see the necessity for like the mandates. And so it makes it really easy for like people like him to get traction, because all they have to do is say like, we oppose this or we oppose that, and without actually offering like a counter solution or any kind of like any way to like solve the issue, because then all they have to do is say, well, we're not going to do that, and that's it. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. I'm not gonna defend Abbott though. He's a fucking idiot.
Biggs.
So this is kind of a little bit of a conundrum for me personally. I don't like mandating anything, which is kind of weird. So I don't like the mandate of the non-mandates, which is kind of weird for me. But I don't think that he should have mandated a ban on mandates. But I also don't think business should mandate. So in the end, I think that it should always be the individual's decision on what they want to do. So honestly, I think it's kind of a moot point, because I think his mandate of the banning on mandates is actually in favor of individual rights. So I do agree with that part of it. So I guess if I reduce it down to that, I would agree with it. But again, kind of like Nacho said, I'm not a fan of Abbott. I don't think mandating anything, whether it be on the state level or the federal level, I don't agree with it personally. But as far as this goes, like I think that the lowest you can go to it and the closest to the actual individual decisions is in the best interest of everybody, I think. So I would go with that. But I don't like mandating anything, whether it's mandating against mandates or the actual mandates themselves. So I know that's kind of confusing sounding, but I just want people to make their own decisions and live life how they want to.
Next is going to be Dr. Heemdout.
Okay, so if anybody's watching this on the YouTube, please do me a favor, rewind a little bit and count how many times my man Biggs just said the word mandate. It must have been upwards of 30 or 40. That was brilliant. I guess he hates mandates. Okay, so I don't know, man. It's kind of fucking weird. The mandates, you guys say that you don't see the point of them, but like they actually do work. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and we implemented mandates about midway through last month, and I actually tracked the vaccination rates, and right as soon as the mandates came, which required vaccines to dine indoors, you saw an uptick in people getting their first doses, and I thought that was pretty neat. Personally, in my personal life, I know at least 3 people who were super vaccine hesitant who have been coerced into getting the vaccine here. And I think I'm perfectly fine with that. If you compare like just some vaccination numbers, and if we could just look at the numbers a little bit and dig in a little bit, Texas just a couple weeks ago had their most daily cases and during the whole pandemic, upwards of 20,000 cases in one day. So I found that pretty interesting. And their vaccination rates are really low. So they have 60% of the population has received at least one dose. And compare that to New York, for example, 72% have received at least one dose. And in California, 67.7% have received at least one dose. So you can see that Texas is trailing a little bit behind. So I don't know. I guess like just depends if you guys want to get over the pandemic or not. I think a lot of this probably has to do with optics for Greg Abbott. Yeah, I think I'm good to leave off right here. I can't think of anything else. Mandates.
Next is going to be Hunter Avalon.
Yeah, so you'll notice throughout the beginning of this conversation already, just hearing the opening statements of a few people here, is that we're going to hear a lot about like freedom. People should have the freedom to choose people. Well, people also need to have the freedom not to get sick and pursue employment without getting a preventable disease because brain dead dipshits are too scared to get a safe and effective vaccine. So, yes, 100%
Ed Humming once
what
again.
Greg Abbott did, I don't agree with. Now, on a states' rights level, technically speaking, since a state has a right, according to the Supreme Court and the Constitution, a state has a right to mandate vaccines. The state technically also has a right, I guess, to restrict vaccine mandates. But I just find this
I don't know
whole
if that's
thing really
true.
ironic because, one, like what other people are saying,
It's Ed
vaccine
Humming
mandates are
again.
doing their job. Two, thanks to the vaccine, we've already prevented upwards of 280,000 deaths just in America, according to the late this Yale study that came out. So there's absolutely some strong arguments there. I just think that at the end of the day, we hear conservatives complain a lot about how, oh, during COVID, they're trying to gain power. They're trying to gain power. But yet, this is a Republican breaking away from Supreme Court rulings and breaking away from precedent. Not only this, but also breaking away from the fact that in Texas, there's a fuck ton of other vaccine mandates that they never had a problem with. Breaking away from all of this, signing an executive order, so taking way more control here, way out of line than we're seeing any actual mandates being implemented. So I just find that really ironic that it's actually the right that seems to be grasping much more at the control throughout this
Joseph
situation.
Ed Hum and the straw
again, they
man's
seem to
again.
be too scared to get a
Ed
safe and
Humming and
effective
straw
vaccine.
manning again.
Okay, now we're gonna throw it over to Jangles.
Yeah, so I hate using this word because it's abused a lot, but it kind of fits here. It does seem like more of a virtue signal than anything else. It doesn't seem like it has a whole lot of like bearing. It like will probably be superseded by like federal rulings. A lot of businesses are already like banking on banking on like the federal rulings from like Biden and his mandates are going to supersede the executive order. It seems like a virtue signal because he has a primary foe that is way more right than him, and that primary foe has been pushing him right on several different things. So it seems like this is just a way to like play to some of like the more right wing, more severe right wing like fears around COVID and mandates and all that
Because
fun
it
stuff.
happened before.
And I know it's not the point
Yes.
of the topic here, but Nacho brought it up is like when you do things like mandate vaccines, that it pushes people further right. It pushes people into more idiotic decisions. That might be true, but I also kind of want to start using that for us. It's like all the idiots on the right who are like super against the vaccine. Y'all are making us do these mandates. You're pushing us further left and more authoritarian. You're just making us do these mandates. So yeah, mandates do work. They do provide a powerful nudge. They do seem to increase vaccination rates against people who were hesitant. So it would be effective. And finally,
Obviously, when you mandate something, it's gonna
managing and
be
hopefully
something you're gonna
ending
get
this
more.
virus that is like
You're coercing
fucked
people
all
to
of us
do
for 2 years now.
it.
So yeah, I don't think that's the mandates. I don't think his executive order is gonna like carry much weight. I think it's just something to
For sure, for sure.
some
I
like
agree
red
with
meat to
that.
throw to his base. Like, see, I tried to fight against the tyrannical Joe Biden for his use in his primary coming up.
Okay, next is gonna be Lumi.
Alrighty, on these mandates, I guess my main concern is for workers' rights. If your workplace is having that issue and I know that we don't have a lot of worker democracy. We do have a very top-down system, but my hope is that eventually we can get more democracy in the workplace. I'm gonna out myself as a socialist right before the hyper-capitalist goes, but so with that, I worry that that takes that ability away from that. However, we're not there yet. I did feel like it was a little bit of an interesting move on Abbott's part, but I haven't followed Abbott very closely. It was interesting to hear Nacho and maybe Biggs was doing this as well, have some concern around and acknowledge like maybe maybe not so great, but of course that's a reflection of us all not always 100% agreeing with the people or the party that we're considered most aligned with.
Okay, next is going to be Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. So on this point, I do find it interesting to note that it turned out that the party that claims, that positions itself as being the most anti-communist, the most sort of pro-American, pro-patriotism, this sort of thing, is the most adamantly opposed to any sort of collective action to mitigate the pandemic or to essentially stave off the effects of what was essentially incubated by the CCP. Now, I'm not saying that they necessarily created this or anything. All I'm saying is that they arrested the doctors, such as Dr. Lee, that tried to warn the world of what was going on, put them in jail for quote unquote spreading rumors, and allowed the virus to blow up, just as the Soviets
Finally,
did with
Kevin's getting
Chernobyl,
based.
basically. And so, whether or not it was an
I love it,
intentional
Kevin.
thing by the CCP,
I love it. Super powered fucking broadcasting. Hell yeah!
It has had an effect of essential economic warfare against the U.S. and it has benefited on the on the net. The CCP over the U.S. and I thought it was very disappointing to me to see at the beginning, at the get-go of this, that Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals made it a partisan issue. It should have been the sort of thing that everybody comes together, everybody has the same, more or less synchronized approach. Get over the pandemic as soon as possible. What is the most effective way to get over the pandemic? That is, get the vaccine going as soon as possible and then get it to everybody as soon as possible. And the best way to do that is to mandate it, because there are a lot of people out there that are somewhat hesitant about it. They don't necessarily have the information to make the right choice, and some of them don't actually have the intellectual
fucking authoritarianism, man.
Developed from
Kevin, you're killing me. You're dropping the ball.
Even if they were presented
You're
with
dropping the fucking ball, Kevin. You're dropping it.
To see Greg Abbott come out here, it's like, okay, well, you want to let this virus continue basically unabated for the most part. That's very disappointing. And I would say we should not be nobody should be banning mandates on vaccines. There should be a nationwide, in Canada and the US, mandate on vaccines across the board, not just federal employees. It should be the sort of thing that everybody goes and gets vaccinated, unless you have a medical exemption or you face criminal penalties for it. That's what I would support.
Wow.
I would say about this quickly on the point about Texas.
He is fucking going hard authoritarianism.
For companies out there, if you're in Texas, I hope that they follow the federal mandate, which is basically Joe Biden has mandated that large companies, federal employees, that sort of thing, that they get vaccinated. I believe it's over 100 employees. If you are a big company, over 100 employees or whatever, I would advise them to follow the federal government, because what Abbott has done here is just essentially put in place a ban on mandates, but he hasn't banned companies from following the federal mandate. And so private companies can do what they want now, but I would hope that they would synchronize towards the federal government, because in a time of absolute crisis, such as a pandemic, the states' rights, all that is essentially division. So what happened to patriotism there, basically? I mean, you look at Canada, where there has been a bit more effective. We've had about 2.5 fewer deaths per capita as a result of COVID than in the United States. So obviously, countries like Canada are doing something right here with particular provinces, as Dr. Heen had alluded to. So thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to throw it over to Turk.
Yeah, so I live here in Texas, and Greg Abbott is my governor. So him passing this has direct impact on me. So I should have a voice when it comes to these sorts of discussions. Do we have any other Texas residents on the panel? You can just raise your hand.
Did we have any other trans people on the panel?
This is so bad faith of him.
No, I just want to see who all lives in Texas. Anyways,
no, COVID affects
my statements. I really want to. I'm really interested. There's several different angles, right? Because everyone thinks Texas is a big bad boogeyman. They're making all the bad calls. Yet people keep moving here for some reason. Maybe it's because we actually have this thing called personal responsibility, lower tax rates, and it's probably a pretty good life here in Texas. So if you don't like that there's these mandates and you don't like the way Texas is doing things, but you kind of keep moving here, that's really weird. But I'm really interested in seeing what the I think Hunter mentioned this earlier. Like, where does the federal overseeing go? How does it override the Texas law here? I'm really interested in seeing what the talk about that happens. So I think people should go and take the vaccine if their doctor recommends it and they're not barred from getting it. And I think that's mainly what Texas is trying to do: give people the responsibility to take care of themselves. And if they don't, they've made the choice to not do that.
I can answer that. Sure.
It is now open to the panel. This is the last topic, and I would also like to ask chat. It takes time to put these together, takes effort to put these together. Any subs and donations would be greatly appreciated. You may all begin.
Okay, so I got a question for Biggs. Biggs had said that you're against mandates and putting in place mandates. Basically, I guess my question is, you said, if I recall correctly, about companies too, they should leave it up to individuals. What if you're a private company? What if you're a private company, you got, say, 3,000 employees, and you decide that you're going to mandate that your employees get vaccinated? Are you opposed to that? Because that's an individual that owns that company. They're the, legitimate.
And they have those rights.
Yeah. So should they have the right to do that?
So my personal opinion is I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the business's right to do that. But my issue comes when it becomes the state making the mandate. So, like, to me, when you have a business situation, when you're working for a company and they want to institute these mandates, right? I think in this case, I think I would like the workers to have some type of protection. So, like, if they are going to not take these, because this is obviously a changing of their contract, right? Of how, whatever they agreed to their employment originally. So I think there should be some type of a situation. Maybe if they don't want to do this, maybe they should get some type of severance. But I just don't like when the state gets involved. I personally don't think that companies should mandate, but I also respect their right to mandate. Does that make sense?
That you don't,
Okay.
I know you don't want the state to do mandates, but do you recognize also, while we're on the subject of rights, that the state has a constitutional right to mandate vaccines and quarantines and lockdowns?
So when you look at the actual, like, court cases and things like that, when you go back to, like, the smallpox issue and stuff like that, I think it comes down to a risk cost benefit analysis and risk analysis. I think back when we had those actual Supreme Court cases, where I believe it was Massachusetts or somewhere in the Northeast, for I believe it was for Massachusetts for smallpox, right? That was a case where it was literally like something like a 20% fatality rate.
Not always, actually.
Not always, but on average, right? But I'm saying, like, it's a much higher rate, and I think that if this was the case, if COVID was to that extent, at least whatever we agree, whatever that percentage is of fatality rate of smallpox, even if it's like 5% or 15%, whatever that is, I think we would have a much higher level of people being more for these vaccines.
It's not just about people dying. It's about
I agree with that too.
It's about the fact that we're spreading a virus that's ultimately killing off people. So if you look at the life expectancy in America, for example, it's literally gone down in the past year because of
and it went down
COVID-19.
The previous year as well. Yes, I know.
So vaccinations are extremely important for helping there, and the state absolutely has a right to do such. It's not because
I don't think that's the case.
Wait. It's not because smallpox was more deadly. Because again, they're on the low spectrum. Smallpox was only was 1% deadly. You guys love to talk about 99.9%.
No, that's not. That's not. No.
In some, yes, it was anywhere between 1 to like 30.
Yes,
just like
that's a big. That's a big range,
COVID
right?
Can be also. COVID can be 99.9% survival, or it can be much more deadly if you're older or fall into other.
You're being completely off base with this, just so you know, Hunter. And I'm not going to. Yes, you are. You are conflating two completely way different, way not even comparable diseases.
What the death is. It also matters.
I understand that.
Society.
I understand that.
To prevent the.
Do you also understand that risk analysis? Like, you can die from driving a car, right? You're actually more likely to die if you're under 40 from driving in a car than you are from dying of COVID. Now, obviously, I understand.
Wait, you're more likely to die in a car crash than die from a vaccine, from dying from anything. Yes.
Sure. Yes. Exactly.
Car crashes aren't contagious. Car crashes aren't contagious. Right. That's such a false equivalence. So.
But you have to understand, we have like an 80% immunity rate in the country already. So the fact that we're pushing these, yes, we do. Did you not see these studies from Harvard and stuff?
That's not true. That's not
no,
true.
Yes, what are you talking about? Right now, we only have 54% of the country that's fully vaccinated.
No. I said immunity. If you listen to what I was saying instead of ad homing and straw manning me, you would understand what I was fucking saying.
Wait. Okay. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have.
You don't know what I'm saying.
Talk for 30 seconds, and I'm gonna count down. Then we're gonna have Biggs talk for 30 seconds. This is what we're gonna do, so we can clarify what people are saying. Hunter, you have 30 seconds. I'll write Heem's name down.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. So when it comes to the states' rights to mandate vaccines, at the end of the day, it's not about how deadly the virus is. It's about overall the states' rights to protect public health. And they have the right to do that under the 10th Amendment of the state police powers. They are able to implement quarantine and lockdowns. It's not because one virus was super deadly and this isn't as deadly. It doesn't matter. It's about the right to defend public safety. So that's it. That's all I need to say.
Thanks.
Yes, and I agree with you. But we could literally say that it's in the interest of public safety to stop people from leaving their house and driving their cars, right? What I'm saying is we have to have a risk analysis and see what is the issue and what is the actual ramifications of these mandates. Like, I want everybody to get the vaccine, but I don't think it's necessarily right for the government to mandate, because there are things, especially when we have things like no exemption mandates, things like that.
You do
we
have
can't,
exemptions, though.
There are for some, but not for all, right? There's not all states.
So, for example, like Biden's new mandate thing, are we able to go back and forth for a second here?
I was saying 30 seconds each, uninterrupted, before we did that. I wanted to make sure that people got to clarify before we went back into that. Biggs, I'll give you 15 more seconds.
So all I want to say is I am definitely for people getting the vaccine. I think if that's what you want to do it, right? But I just don't want the government to mandate anything, right? It's not just vaccines. I don't like the idea of mandating. Now, I think if it's an issue like smallpox, where it was a much higher, and I think we can agree, it was a much higher rate of fatality, then in those cases, people will be more susceptible to do that, right?
So no, it's not about actually like how deadly the virus is or anything at all. Again, it's about
if it was like the flu, there would be no issue.
No.
Sorry.
I want to throw it over to Heemed. Heemed was the first written down. I have Engels and Kevin also written down. And
Okay.
Kirk.
So actually, what makes COVID such a long-lasting virus and a pandemic that's so ongoing is because the fatality rate isn't at 30% or whatever percent you're looking for.
And there's animal
if
reservoirs.
The pandemic would have ended in 1 month because
and
a bunch
variants.
of people would have died, and that's what happens a lot of the time when viruses.
Yes, we've all played fucking Plague Inc.
to the entire globe.
Oh my
part
gosh!
of it is that we're able to stay alive, and we're not dying at such a high percentage. But the thing is that part of the mitigation is keeping the hospitals from being overrun. I can't believe we're still talking about the seriousness of COVID, right? I thought we were going to talk about the mandate and so on and so forth, but
that's what I was trying to talk about.
Arguments as though COVID is not that serious still, and it comes down to keeping the hospitals from being overrun. I work at a hospital, and for some period, our ICU was at over 100% capacity. Our children's hospital in the city had to turn away kids so that they could put adults in the children's hospital. It is very serious, and if your hospitals become overrun, that's when you start to get way higher fatality rates. And keep in mind that there's not that many ICU beds available. They purposely, resource allocation makes it such that there's not one ICU bed for every single one of us at the hospital just waiting for us to get sick and go to it. There's only a handful of beds. In my province, I live in Ontario, we have 14 million people. There's only like 3,000 ICU beds. So we have to be very careful and do this all together. And that's why I think the mandates work. And it's weird that you guys are trying to say it doesn't work when like we could point to so many places where mandates are effective.
Also, don't we have mandates around cars and car safety? We have to drive under a certain limit.
We have all kinds of stoma thing.
We have asbestos. Asbestos is another one.
Oh my gosh,
you can't have too much radiation. I'm in radiation field. Everything that you go to, whether it's the X-ray machine or whether it's getting treatment for your cancer, all of these things are heavily regulated and heavily.
And that's the thing is, like they need to be regulated in some instances. The problem is like in Big's world where it's like no regulation at all. It's like polio.
No
still
regulation
exists.
at all.
Kids are dying from preventable diseases.
Oh my gosh, straw manning again! Jesus Christ!
And all of a sudden,
always with the straw man.
No, wait. This guy said, hold on. This guy said he's not in favor of mandates. So I'm saying in his world, yes, you would see an uptick of preventable disease. You would see an uptick of child death, and you would see an uptick in what? Drunk driving. If there's if there's not going to be any regulations, then yes, you're going to see society go to hell.
We see a very good example of this right now. When you have like cannabis, when you have them in the gray market area not regulated, you have problems where people had the vitamin E in the cartridges because there just wasn't the regulation. And Biggs, the reason I make this point is like I probably agree with you on a lot of like backing up on certain government things, but I do think regulations and certain mandates can be really important for public health. And the cars example was kind of rough because we do have mandates around that.
I think the cars example maybe is one that gets used because it's like if I'm not wearing my seatbelt and you're wearing your seatbelt and we get in a car accident and I die, like that's not your fault. That's not anybody else's fault. Like that's my decision
better
to not
example
wear
would
the
actually
seatbelt. So
be
like if you're really terrified
no, a better
of
example
dying
would
in
be
a fucking
drunk.
car, then put your fucking seatbelt on. Like I don't understand why
No, no,
everyone
no.
else
So
around you needs to be
no,
vaccinated.
this is a misunderstanding. So this would
Isn't
be like it would
Like
be
I'm
this.
vaccinated. I don't give a fuck really.
I
Like,
know,
at the end of the
I
day,
know.
it's not-
Again,
It
I know.
doesn't matter if you're vaccinated.
It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated.
It's about compelling vaccination across the board because not enough people are. It doesn't matter.
Right, but
any
because a lot of
individual
people are under the impression that it's misinformation, like they have a lot of misinformation. So why would I put my seatbelt to save someone? No, a better example, a better comparison, although not completely analogous, would actually be drunk driving. So one, it's your body, your choice. You have bodily autonomy, and two, it's your car, your property. You should have the right to do that. Technically
Not the
speaking.
same thing.
Okay, but if
So-
I have a magic vial that saves me from drunk drivers hitting me, then
wait.
or the
But why
severely
wouldn't
reduces
you?
the
So-
impact of like what's going to
Wait, am I
happen in a
allowed to
car
respond
accident,
here?
like-
Holy shit! So why are you not allowed to drive drunk? It's
But,
because
like,
it risks other
I
people.
think the seatbelt is a perfect
negative
analogy because you're still going to get
externality,
damaged. But if I have my seatbelt on, like I still can be
But it
injured, but I'm
hurts
not
other
going to
people.
die.
The seatbelt isn't.
externality,
But I'm not going to die.
It's a
Nacho,
negative
please
externality.
Does that
try
make
to think.
sense?
No, Nacho, empty the cheese out of your brain, please. Okay, listen
Come
to
on,
me.
bro.
It's
Like,
okay. Trust me. Come to the
I'm
light
giving
here,
you my
okay?
best, okay?
No,
Like,
you're not
no,
making good
seriously,
arguments
man.
right now.
Nacho,
You're being
I don't think
ridiculous.
you're getting it. I don't think you're getting
You're comparing it to the seatbelt.
Cut this.
The
seatbelt.
Let's stop for a second. Hunter, 30 seconds.
All right.
Nacho, 30 seconds. Then I'm going to the list. Jangles, by the way, your thing was said, so should I cross your name out or you still want to be on the list?
Fucking Lumi.
Okay, I'll cross your name out.
Stealing
No,
your
no,
thunder.
I want to say
responding
something
to-
else, but you know,
Biggs.
It was responding to
Louis
Nacho saying
stole
what
my
were you what was your point, Nacho, about the drunk? Right. So the seatbelt analogy isn't very analogous because you're technically right that if you're wearing your seatbelt, then it doesn't really affect other people. But when you're driving drunk, that risks the lives of other people. So it's the same reason why it's important for you to get vaccinated. So if someone is vaccinated, but someone else isn't, the unvaccinated person is more likely to carry the Delta variant, which is more contagious and more likely for a breakthrough virus to happen. On top of that, you risk immune and compromised individuals, etc., etc. So yes, you do immeasurable harm by not getting vaccinated. It's not very analogous to the seatbelt. A much better example would be drunk driving. We restrict it. There's mandates on the fact that you can't do it because it's in the
I was
interest of
talking about the
public health and it's
literal
for the
fact of
betterment
you
society.
driving and
lastly,
crashing
really
and
quick, I'll make this
dying.
5 seconds.
Nothing to
We
do with the
cannot have
regulation of
a
it.
free
Jesus
society. We
Christ.
talk here about living freely and
Oh
how
my
important that
gosh.
is. We cannot live freely if every time we walk out the door, we're getting sick. If every time we walk out
Oh
the
my
door,
gosh,
we're
you're
getting
so
infected with a
petrified of
preventable
this disease that literally does
restricts our
nothing against
freedom
you.
and
You have
actually
like
hurts your overall
potentially
goal.
super low percentage of
We're
being
gonna
hurt
have
by
Nacho
it.
respond, and then we gotta go to the list because so many people have been waiting, like Jangles, Kevin, Turk, Biggs, etc.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know. I don't really see how the drunk driving thing is a better analogy. Like I understand what you're saying, like because it doesn't matter whether like if everyone in the country is vaccinated and someone is still out there, like or if the virus still just comes out, like someone is still spreading the virus. So I don't understand how you can relate it to drunk driving instead of like wearing a seatbelt. Like if I'm vaccinated, I'm not at risk anymore as much, especially being hospitalized. My rate of or my
The
risk of
risk
being
isn't that-
hospitalized is severely reduced. So I don't really see
Wait one second. The
how you
risk
can
isn't
switch
that-
it up
the-
and try to use different
I
analogies.
said you would have
And then
interrupted.
my second, I know we got away from it, but way much earlier, there was something said about like the 10th Amendment in regards to like the states' rights. You're exactly right. Like the states, the 10th Amendment basically delegates it to the state, so the state can choose to not implement those just the same way they can choose to implement them.
Okay.
But their choice to restrict it is a
So
lot
we-
more unprecedented.
Jangles.
So getting back to Abbott's mandate, I think it's kind of fucked up that like Abbott's mandate prevents companies from taking measures they would believe would keep their employees and customers safe. And I think that kind of gets lost in all of this stuff. I know that like there's the meme like if you sacrifice things for safety, you can't truly have liberty. But the imposition here is so small. Like people like comparing like the people who refuse to get the refuse to get vaccinated. People like comparing that to like Rosa Parks. Like, come on, the imposition being placed on you to get vaccinated is a 20-minute trip to Walgreens. It's nothing. The imposition placed upon you is nothing. It's been turned into a culture war issue. I actually thought shit, I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Your lovely beard. What's your lovely beard? New lovely beard. Books.
Me? Evan
No?
Castley?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
me,
Kevin.
Superpower broadcast.
Fuck, I'm sorry.
Steven Crowder.
Yeah, I thought you made a
That guy's a coward. That guy's a coward. I'm gonna debate me, bro. He ain't. He's a coward.
Well, I
man.
thought you made a lovely point that it has been politicized.
We got to bring Sam Cedar in here.
So yeah,
What a fucking nightmare.
Not a nightmare.
Coward.
I do want to ask. This is a genuine question. So, like, I know a lot of people like they don't want the state to get involved in people's healthcare and decisions and liberties and all that fun stuff. But if we have this thing like a global pandemic, how does an atomized approach to individual liberties deal with something like a global pandemic where it's really not up to you? Like, if you are a carrier for disease, you do affect other people, and like,
yes,
isn't the meme like
Bingo.
your freedom ends where like your freedom to punch ends with my face or something like that? So how does an atomized approach
that's the thing right there. Gotta have collective action for collective problems. So.
New world order, baby. Let's
Well,
go.
conservatives talk a lot
let's go,
about being like patriotic and everything, and if you want to look at it, George Washington was a huge proponent of vaccine mandates. So, for example, he mandated vaccines for his army, and he also actually wrote in various letters about how in favor of mandates he was, to the point of saying that he thinks every
the rate
child
of death was much higher.
Again,
this
it's
was
not
such
about
a much more serious
it's not
degree.
just about the rate
I'm
of death.
totally
Again, I told
pro-vaccine, bro. Like,
I told you that I don't care if you're pro-vaccine or not. What you're saying is wrong. So the smallpox thing could be as non-deadly as only 1%, or it could be as deadly as 30%. We literally can see COVID that in some instances you have a 99.9% survival rate. In other instances, you're much more likely to die. It's not about the death rate necessarily. It's about overall, like what Kevin was saying, a universal measure to try and get everybody vaccinated. And George Washington was in favor of this to the point that he literally said that he would be in favor of forcing kids to be vaccinated against their parents' wishes. Like that's how fucking extreme George Washington was.
Are
Okay,
we
so
doing
this
this for? Are we doing this for every single like virus variant in the future? Like, what are we gonna shut down for the next flu? Like, what? I don't.
Down. Wait, we're talking about vaccinations.
It's the same. It's almost the same mortality rate.
Like,
wait, when there's new viruses, you tend when there's new viruses, you tend to get new vaccines and stuff for that too.
I
yeah, that's like
understand
a common
this,
thing. So yeah, if there was a new virus that
flu
came out,
vaccine
you'd
is
probably
not
be a normal
mandated.
thing. Yes.
Like for another flu variant is what I specified. Like.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, you get boosters every year for the flu. Yeah.
I mean,
I have to take them every year.
What argument are you making right
now?
now?
But we're not shutting down the fucking country and forcing people to get. Okay. And I'll be clear too, because this is because in healthcare, which is a field I work in. I work in a nursing home. Like I have to get like mandatory vaccines. I get them every year. Like I'm fine with that. It makes sense. It makes sense for that area. I just don't see. I just don't see how it makes sense for other areas. That's all. Like if you're working in healthcare, absolutely. If I'm working in a nursing home, absolutely. I don't have any problem with that. And I don't want to get like old people sick. I know this is the target group.
But what about people that are younger that although they might not get sick and die, they could suffer long-term negative effects? So for example,
the majority of people who are suffering long-term effects of this are people who had other comorbidities or that were active like during their infection.
So for example, if you were to walk into like Subway and you were the employee, right? And you're working next to your other employee, that employee has a right not to get sick from you while working at their job. And the employer, by the way, also
right, but if that person should get vaccinated. Like that's what
even if the government should mandate them to do it.
Yes,
if they
the
are
government
going to
should
be
mandate they all get vaccinated then, right?
This
So
is the difficult part here. So like you're
this is a nacho for your brain. This is what happens.
Okay.
You microwave for too long. It happens.
I let it go on for a while. Jangles, I'll let you make your comment quick. Then I'll have Nacho respond. But then we have to go to the list because we have Kevin, Turk, Biggs, and Lumi.
Can he stop attacking me for immutable characteristics? All right, me being a nacho is not my fault. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and then we still have wrap up, and we only have 15 minutes left in the show, so it's gonna go over already, and I cannot go past midnight. So, Jangles,
All right, I'll be super quick. So when you're describing like environments where it would make sense, like healthcare and nursing homes, stuff like that, that's also that's great, but that's not how like viruses are spread. All right. So my little brother worked at McDonald's, and the people and he worked at McDonald's in rural red state, Eastern Kentucky. All right. People did not like masks. They almost like challenged themselves to get the freedom flu to stick it to Joe Biden and all that fun stuff. And so my little brother got COVID by working at McDonald's, and then he went home. You know who was home? My elderly mother with 30% lung capacity. She stopped smoking 10 years ago, but it still fucked up her lungs. Do not smoke, kids. And so he gave it to her. And that was like the scariest. I thought there was a big chance that I was going to lose my mother. My mother doesn't leave the house, essentially, all right? But she has a son who had to work for a living, and then that son came back and gave it to her. So it doesn't matter that he worked at McDonald's instead of a nursing home. Like, that's how viruses spread. People go out and meet other people. And this was before the vaccine was widely available, so it didn't if this had happened like after like vaccine mandates were in place, that would not have happened, and that wouldn't have been like this terrifying like 2 weeks of my life where I thought I was going to lose my mother, and like then now both parents are dead, and awesome, all because like some motherfuckers thought it was like they're expressing their freedom because they weren't wearing a mask, because apparently wearing a mask hurts your little ears or something.
Well, probably because they got too scared reading a Facebook meme, so they decided not to get vaccinated, and now because of that, we all are stuck with more pandemic. Because these, like I said, this is why I take a really harsh stance against the anti-vaxxers or people that peddle anti-vax stuff. Yeah.
Nobody's anti-vax. Jesus Christ.
Oh, sorry, man.
We're gonna go on 4 hours if we.
I don't. He can go. I said what I needed to say.
Okay, well then we'll just go to Kevin then.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Don. Yeah, I'll try to get through this quick. So, yeah, no. So as far as the point about polio and how this isn't as serious as that, it really depends on which age group you look at. And if you are in, above, what is it, like 65 or whatever, you're approaching 15% fatality rate if you contract COVID, if you're unvaccinated, especially. Also, it was brought up the comorbidities as if that's supposed to be somehow, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because those people were already ill. No, the point is, yeah, they're more susceptible to get it. That doesn't mean that we don't care about their lives. They still might have survived if it weren't for the influence of COVID being contracted. Now, I think, I got to ask the question just in general, and this is more rhetorical because I got a couple points after, but what's even the point in having a government if in a time of absolute crisis, such as a once-in-a-century pandemic, it's not empowered to do its job to protect its citizens? Like, what a joke. And the second, or the third point that I have here is that the Biggs earlier was saying, well, no, I'm just against the government across the board mandating things. At that point, Biggs, you've already proven yourself ideologically rigid and inflexible, and it's really not a serious position in a time of crisis such as this. You actually have to be a little bit rigid, and that if you are a little bit flexible, because if you're not, your world will not survive. Your country will not stand in the face of great crises if you're that inflexible, because you could take that approach to really any situation. And I gotta say, look, at the end of the day here, yeah, does it make me sound like kind of a collectivist or a little bit authoritarian or kind of a socialist or whatever? The point is, we're in a time of crisis. You have to be flexible a little bit. In general, in normal times, I wouldn't necessarily be advocating for such a heavy-handed approach as, say, mandatory mandates, not banning mandates, but actually mandatory
mandatory mandates. I'm mandating the mandates
in a time of crisis such as a once-in-a-century pandemic. And so, it's like how I'm a little bit more center-right on economics. I'd love to live in a world with lower taxes, higher output, all that kind of stuff. But I acknowledge we got some big issues to deal with right now, like pandemic. We got massive security threats, humanitarian crises like North Korea that got getting liberated. So we got to raise taxes in the short term so that once we do have world peace, we can lower taxes forevermore afterwards. But we got to deal with the threats to our society right now. COVID is the major one at the moment. So finally, yeah, I support mandatory vaccinations. #vax, don't care about your feelings. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
Next is going to be Turk, then Biggs, then Lumi, and then we have to wrap up, and we're all going to have like 1-minute outros.
Yeah, so like, I honestly don't have any extra input, but I was going to try and bridge the gap kind of between, these mandates are proper and everyone should do them, and then going to Biggs and saying, well, mandates aren't, we don't need to protect for such low fatality rates. Maybe there could be room for compromise. If you look at 65 plus for fully vaccinated people, the state of Texas is 86% fully vaccinated, and guess what state is right above that? California, 86.9. So it's like Texas is doing similar in vaccination rates as other states that have more severe policies in place. Can't we let the individual take a little bit of responsibility? You can see some of the vaccination rates for other age groups, and that's where a Delta is different. But also, those are more survivable people groups, right? So I think there could be a compromise, but unfortunately, it's not the topic for today.
Okay, next is going to be Biggs.
Yeah, so to piggyback off of what he was saying there, like when you look at the actual data, the fully vaccinated people, the majority of the people over 65 in almost every state is over 80%, right? If you look at the data, and this is from, I'm looking at, and he might have been looking at more recent, but I'm looking from beginning of September. So I mean, like what you said there is the people that are the highest risk are being vaccinated, right? I also have a study from here that I was talking about before when I mentioned about that you guys didn't believe me because you're ad hominem and straw manning me. There's actually from CNN and the CDC that more than 80% of Americans 16 and older have some form of immunity against the coronavirus, either through vaccination or natural inoculation. So at what point is it actually going to be like, are we going to be sufficient to say like this is where we need, does it need to be 100%? Does it need to be 98%? From my perspective,
95.
From my perspective is that we have at least more than 5% of the people in the total population that probably shouldn't get the vax due to either medical reasons or if they want religious reasons, even though I'm not religious, I don't necessarily believe that. But what I'm saying is there's probably more than 5% of the total population that would fall in those categories. So what I'm saying is I'm all for getting the vaccine. I think everybody should get the vaccine. Get it. It's good. Like I'm a gamer, so anytime I can get like a bonus to damage, even if it's 5% damage increase, I'll take that in my video games, right? So I want people to get vaccinated, but I don't think the government should mandate anything. There's a difference between forcing people to do something and forcing people not to do something because it's an infringement on others, which is why that whole drivers thing, which you guys misconstrued, which I meant the actual risk of driving, not the regulations from driving. Because obviously we have to have...
Because it's a negative externality.
Of course,
what I'm saying is, though, is you guys were misunderstanding my point. What I was saying was your chances of getting killed driving under the age of 40 is higher than dying from COVID, and I understand
Doesn't matter.
But what I'm saying is that
that's a red herring.
That's so irrelevant.
Sure, that's fine. I was just literally making a point about the risk analysis that we don't prevent people from driving because we don't want people to die, even though you're actually more at risk to die from driving if you're under 40. I'm just saying that there is a comparableness there, right?
Also, if we're going to talk about like a risk benefit, if we're going to talk about a risk benefit analysis,
We're wrapping this up.
Anyways, but what I was saying was I just don't like the idea of mandates, and you guys are misconstruing mandates versus positive and negative applications of the law. Like forcing people to do something versus telling people they can't do something because it's infringing on others is completely different, and you're conflating those two things, which is just completely false.
Telling someone they can't spread a virus. Yes.
Just Jesus Christ.
All right, that's good.
Okay, we're gonna go to Lumi, and then you can say anything else you want to say at ending statements.
I just want to say it's real nice to be on here with y'all.
Aw,
we love you, Lumi. You're amazing. You're so comfy and cozy. Where's your blanket? I feel like you need a blanket.
Dog, that's warm.
It fell behind the
okay,
couch,
that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so we're gonna now go into wrap up. Everybody has ending statements and shout outs. Try to keep it under a minute. We're trying to wrap this up. So we're gonna start with American Nacho on the top left.
Is this outros too?
Yeah, outros and shout outs.
All right, so yeah, I'm American Nacho. If you want to hear more of my shit takes, then come follow me at Twitch and watch my my arc. Okay. What I want to say on this, I guess, is that the reality is that 40% of citizens in the U.S. are overweight, and I think almost half of our population was like over the age of like 50. So these like comorbidities had a pretty large impact on like how COVID impacted our society or our population. And I think that speaks to the fact that like we should be focusing a lot more on getting ourselves in shape, getting our immune systems built up. I'm on the team Vex. All right,
Take your fucking vaccination. I don't give a fuck. It's out there. It's free. I waited a long fucking time. I think a lot of people, some people even in here, I think maybe I had talked to, I think maybe even Biggs and Dylan at some point. I had talked about like my vaccine hesitancy at some point because I had had like the vaccine or I had had the virus already, but I didn't want to give like a bunch of morons like fuel to run around being like anti-vax. But now with the availability, the widespread like vaccine fucking locations everywhere, get your vaccine, and I just don't think you should be running around telling everybody else what to do with their body. Like that's just how I feel about it. You put on your seatbelt, you be protected when you get in a car accident, and I think that's the way we should go. I don't know, man. I think it's really kind of shitty that there was a lot of misinformation about like the virus when everything was coming out, and it worked against the general public. And I think
Nacho,
that's how you
finish
get,
up. Let's
like,
go.
people
Wrap it
like,
up. Wrap it up.
the Governor Abbott getting a lot of fucking like support. And yeah, I don't know. I think that guy's kind of fucking crazy, but you know, whatever.
Thanks.
Can I go later?
Let's
Because
keep
I'm
it
sure.
guys, let's do
Can I go
a
later
minute,
since I'm
a
sure
minute
people are
longer.
going to come at me?
Okay.
Can I go? Can I go
Okay.
later?
I'll
Sure.
go and then leave.
Okay, Hunter, 1 minute.
Okay, yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's important for everybody to get vaccinated. It is not just about protecting yourself, it's about protecting people around you. Again, I don't know why we keep hearing the seatbelt
Oh my
comparison.
gosh! Thank you for the
Because the
follow.
seatbelt is not the only comparison here. Because
Armand
again,
Douche
it's
de
about protecting
Riche
people around
Louis.
you.
Thank you so much for the
Ultimately,
follow.
the vaccine is
Awesome.
safe and effective. The data has overwhelmingly demonstrated this, both in the real world, with the fact that hospitalizations with people with COVID are skyrocketing among unvaccinated, while the vaccinated are living life freely and happily, riding on free from preventable disease spread to us from dipshits that are too scared of a vaccine for some reason. Now, again, Dylan, I'd like to thank you very much for having me on. And I know that, you know, people on this panel weren't like super anti-vax or anything, but I'd still suggest check out ivermectin, guys. It helps with brainworms, okay? I love you all. I'll see you later. Bye.
Okay, see you later. Now we're gonna throw it over to Jangles.
Hi. This was super fun. I actually loved all these topics. Thanks for inviting me on, Dylan. To sum up, give the gays our trash. I want my trash. Give me my trash.
I'm reading it right now, by the way. It is trash. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want more trash, all right? Comedy is important, and it's okay and good to talk about it. And mandates kind of are the compromise to opening back up, all right? If we had some reliable, cheap, widespread way to like test for like antibodies and natural immunity, I think I would actually be okay with that. But the reason we advocate for vaccines is because it's very easy to keep track of. Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, Jangles Science Lad. I have 3 videos on comedy where I explain why you're not allowed to laugh at jokes, and you should feel bad for ever laughing in your entire life. If you'd like to go check those out.
Wonderful. Now we're gonna throw it over to Dr. Heemdout.
Yeah. So, fuck, man. There's so much. I'm kind of over COVID debates, to be honest with you. It's about 2 years into the pandemic, and I'm hearing the same fucking arguments over and over again. And I'm kind of over it. Nacho said 40% of Americans are overweight, and overweight is a comorbidity for COVID. That's more reason why people should vaccinate. They're at risk. And you said there was misinformation from the start. Again, I think a lot of that had to do with just learning about the virus, how it spreads, how does it spread amongst populations, is it airborne, is it surface borne, all of these things. Should we wear masks, or are we getting it from surfaces? All of these things were just very we're just coming out. So of course the science changes over time. It's not misinformation because the science changed. Next up, yeah, I just want to say thanks, I guess, for having me on, Dylan, as always. Co-host of the Burned Out podcast. And I also want to say, if you invite me on your stream for a panel, I stay till the very end. I don't give my plug and leave like some other people that just did. I stay till the very end, man. I ride or die, bro. Let's go. Follow me on Twitch. Check me out on YouTube, where I'm almost at 10,000 subs. Fucking hell. So yeah, come check me out. Thanks for a great night. Awesome.
Awesome. Now we're gonna throw it over to Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. It was awesome to be here. Had a lot of fun tonight. Some great topics to discuss for sure. Yeah, so basically you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Castley. You can
Thank you
check
guys
me
all
out
for
on
hanging out.
Twitch at Superpower
After
Broadcasting.
after I do
stream
my
every
outro
day.
and
I
we
also
finish here,
started
I'm probably gonna
gaming too,
hop off the
gaming
stream and
lately,
go
so
hop into the
I
Discord.
usually do a
So
political or foreign policy
hop into
stream,
that Discord
and then
whenever you
I'll,
can. Let me
stream
see if I
games,
can link it
usually
here.
after
Give me a
that.
second.
I'm doing a post show over there in
me
about
see here.
10 minutes or so. So feel free to come on by. I'll give my thoughts
Oh,
on how
man,
I thought
missing
I
all
did and
kinds of
everything.
things.
And then, yeah, no, for sure. So there's that. And if you want to support me, you can check me out on Patreon at Superpower Broadcasting. And I will close out by just saying, look, this is serious. We're in a time of great crisis right now. This pandemic is a massive
There's the
issue.
Discord,
This is
everybody
something that
hop
we all
in.
need to unite
I love it.
around.
You guys are amazing.
And to the losers and goobers out there that are
Losers
opposing the
and
vaccine
goobers?
mandates, all I
Oh,
gotta
shit.
say is, look, it works. Hashtag Vax don't care about your feelings. Peace.
Wonderful. Now we're going to throw it over to Turk.
Yeah, so as a Texas resident, I support Governor Abbott. I'm really interested to see how the actual lack of mandate for not mandating. I'm really interested to see how that plays out with the federal stuff that's going on and how that's actually going to play out in the courts. Because I work here and I would like to know what my status is as an employee in the state. So I wish we could have talked more about that topic instead of the seatbelt analogy. So whatever.
Sorry.
I'm Turk. I stream
Whoops.
science and tech. You can catch me over at YouTube/the Turk or here on Twitch. I cover a lot of Steam Deck stuff and a lot of PlayStation 5 stuff. So if you like PCs, gaming, and all that hardware kind of talk, you can follow me over there.
Thank you. Biggs?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you, Dylan, for having me on. It was a pleasure. I love coming on here. I love debating people, listening to what everybody has to say. Everybody on here, you guys are all amazing. I know we have our heated discussions, but I know I definitely have kind of caught most of you in different panels and your own streams and stuff. You guys are all awesome. Thank you to the followers. Everybody give Dylan a follow, subs, give all these people subs, follows, all that stuff. You can find me at Biggs8500 on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. As far as this goes, like I said, I just want to err on the side of freedom. I know a lot of what we have in this country now is more of a collectivist ideology, and I do appreciate that to some respect, but I just don't think Governor Abbott mandating a ban on mandates is a necessarily good way to do it, but I don't agree with mandates in general. As Ben Franklin said, if you are not going to, let me see if I can pull up the quote here. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little bit of temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. I think that rings true with what we're seeing in our country right now. I don't think, and again, I know this might be considered being downplaying the virus, but I don't think it's necessitating the amount of push that we're seeing in mandates and preventing people from living their daily lives, especially when we already have 80% of the population with some type of either natural or vaccine immunity. I just think it's kind of ridiculous to force people into these situations, especially when some percentage of the population can't have these due to medical or even religious reasons and things like that. So I think mandates are bad in general, but I do think if you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. Whenever you want to up your percentage in damage in video games, you'll do it. So why not do it here? I don't want to be considered as anti-vax because I'm not, but I just don't like mandates. So thank you very much.
Okay, and Lumi, can you wrap up the show for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dylan, for having me, for having us, and thank you, Dylan's chat, for bearing with us through this all. I'm glad it was about 4 hours or something. Enjoyable.
This was so fun.
Thanks for listening through the gender stuff. Again, I guess my major points are
I'm gonna hop out, and when I get out here, I'm gonna go run up to the bathroom real quick,
bisexual Batman,
get some water,
why
and I'm
the
gonna come
fuck
back down and be in
not?
Discord for a while because it's fucking Friday night. I'm drunk already, and I'm gonna smoke some more of my vape, and it's gonna be fun.
I understand why people want to say he's not transphobic. I wish we could have dove into the nuances on why people felt like he wasn't and hashed out those arguments a little bit more. And but
thank you all for hanging out. Biggs8500. Follow me on Twitter at Biggs8500. Follow me.
Lovely meeting you, as well as Nacho Man and everyone else.
You are so lovely, Lumi. I've been in your chat many a times. You guys are all amazing. You guys are all stars. I love you all.
Awesome, Lumi.
Well, thank you for having us. Oh, you can catch me at twitch.tv/LumiRoo. I like talking about gender and men's liberation and women's liberation and gender liberation because I think freedom is based, including gender freedom.
Oh yeah.
Thank you all for coming on. You all have a blessed one. For everybody at home, you can catch me actually this Sunday. I will be going on 2 panels. One, the HippyDippy Recruitment Show, and the other one is, I don't know, some weird kind of rinky-dink thing set up by some dude. I don't know, some doctor. Fake
He's doing it
doctor or
for
something.
he's helping POC.
Yeah, I'm very progressive. Thank you so much. You all have a good one.
Peace out.
Thank you. Peace.
Have a good night, guys.
That was fun.
It was a blast. Thank you all. Have a great night. I'm ending stream. I love you. It was so funny. I'm going to hop over to my Discord. I'm going to go to the bathroom. So if you want to hop in there and have a little decompression, let me know. All right.
All right.
Peace.
Later.